And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, it's Wednesday. It's hump day, middle of the week with the Finest Unfiltered. John's back, took off Monday. I don't know who authorized that, but you got all three present here. Great topic. I think we should talk about Zohran Mamdani budgeting. And I think what's quite interesting is that Zohran Mamdani has given Kathy Hochul, or Kathy Hochul, however you want to say it, an ultimatum. And that ultimatum is either tax the rich or he's going to raise all property taxes by 10%. Some people might say 10% is not a lot. 10% as a blanket property tax increase is a lot. I've often talked about a good tax structure for New York City, and that's what will keep people there. And we're already seeing some issues. And if anyone's saying right now, see, Eric Adams wasn't that bad, well, watch what you wish for. I think you're getting the same thing. Same thing as Eric Adams. We're just seeing things progress even further. All right, come on, everybody. John, what are your thoughts? By the way, thank you to the chat. It's already going. Friends and listeners, we appreciate it. I know Monday was pretty intense. We had a lot of lefties on, so let's keep rocking.
What's up, everybody? Good morning. So, Zohran Mamdani, baby. He's really sticking it to New York City taxpayers. He's sticking it to his base, and he's sticking it to Kathy Hochul. So I don't know anyone that's happy about this, and I don't think anybody should be happy about this, because regardless of where you stand, the working class is going to suffer. Regardless of what you think about any of this, like this is Zohran Mamdani's plan. It's either, listen, Kathy Hochul's going to let me tax the rich, which is ultimately going to increase the cost of goods and services for you, which is ultimately going to spike the cost of rent for you, or I'm going to increase your property tax by 9.5%. And I'm going to raid your healthcare funds. And guess what? Ultimately, the cost of goods and services and rent are going to continue to get higher for you. So, he ran a campaign of affordability, and not even weeks into his administration, it's a campaign of unaffordability. I mean, the good thing is he's starting off that he's basically going to be a one-term mayor like Eric Adams. So maybe, possibly, New York in 3.5 years, a little bit more, are going to wake up and possibly vote for a candidate that actually cares and actually isn't a liar and hasn't murdered thousands of people in nursing homes and isn't a tyrant. Maybe, possibly. So I think that's maybe the type of good news that we're getting. But other than that, I'm just trying to see how much the cost of my properties in New York is going to go up, how much I'm going to have to raise rent. How much is it going to even be affordable for people like me to own property in New York City anymore? And I think ultimately the goal of this administration and the goal of the Democrats and even the Republicans, unfortunately, is that no, we want all of your private homes to be bought up by developers, and that's it. It's going to be completely unaffordable for you. New York City is going to be a playground for the rich, and all of you is go move out to the suburbs or go move somewhere else or go in the projects where your dirtbags belong, because that's what we're being told, So Zohran Mamdani, full of crap, and I don't know how this looks for Hochul in her governorship run, but I have no faith in New York voters at all to do anything. So more than likely, regardless of what happens, she probably wins also.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Good morning, chat. Morning. I'm sure this is a little better. Yeah, I don't know what to think of it and what their plan actually is, because they really are between a rock and a hard place, I mean, got this nice little picture from New York, well, I think it was New York 1, where Mamdani's first deputy mayor was on, and along with the director, I believe it was, of OMB. And he put up this nice graphic. Basically, plan A is you either raise corporate tax and tax on the wealthiest people, or plan B, which is to screw the working class of the city. And it's between a rock and a hard place, because even if plan A happens, what have we seen so far? We've seen a lot of businesses fleeing New York. We've seen Wall Street, themselves, who are in a lot of ways the problems of New York City and elitism, and we talk about all of that stuff, comes out of Wall Street. But even Wall Street is moving to South Florida and Dallas, right? So Plan A isn't exactly going to help the city, because one of the reasons why the city even actually, one of the reasons they don't have a larger budget issue is because Wall Street has had great, great years, you know? So with them gone, that would create a even slightly bigger budget problem. But Plan B is not that great either, because people themselves are already leaving, and this is going to especially hurt the city council, because a lot of their constituents aren't going to be happy about this. The borough president of Queens yesterday talked about this himself. He talked about how if you raise property taxes, it's going to specifically hurt a lot of the homeowners in Southeast Queens, and he's correct on that. So both sides are negative. There won't be any real winners out of this one.
No, it's going to be far from winning. This is going to be far from any winners. And you know what's interesting about this is a major portion of Mamdani's campaign, excuse me, was affordability when it came to housing. And this is going to have the complete adverse effect, right? So for all the young people, excuse me, for all the young people that were cheering for Zohran Mamdani and that rents are going to be so cheap, this is going to be an avalanche, such an adverse effect that the housing market, I think, is going to go insane in New York. First of all, the interest rates, if they do come down, no one's going to be able to afford property in New York State, especially in New York City, because the prices are just going to be completely jacked up. And even with property taxes increase, so no one's going to be able to buy and no one's going to be able to sell. So this is just going to be stuck. And what's interesting about this, even according to the Post article, this is going to affect about 3 million homes. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. And it's going to affect commercial also. This is going to affect commercial locations as well. So this idea that you tax the rich and everything's fine. No, if you tax the rich, guess what? They leave New York City. And that's a problem. And if they don't leave New York City, as John said earlier, they're going to jack up the price on goods or jack up the price of whatever services they have, and you'll feel the effects by it as well. So at the same time, we can't say, excuse me, ignorance is bliss. You can't say, well, Zohran Mamdani wasn't the mayor. He's not aware. No, he was running for mayor, and he was telling you this is his plan and telling you what's going on. So he was supposed to, and I'm sure he was fully aware of the fiscal crisis going on in New York City and throughout New York State, and especially New York City. Since you're running for that position as mayor, you're going to have one. I mean, if we had a bullet point plan right now, one of his bullet point plans would have to be part of the budget, right? If you're going to be mayor, you have to be aware of the budget and how you're going to budget different agencies, especially we know in 2020, he was already saying that the budget should be shorthanded for the NYPD, talking about defunding the police. So here we are. Now we're defunding the housing market. So this is just another bullshit politician in Zohran Mamdani, and we're feeling the effects early. I mean, he's not even 90 days into his mayoral tenure, and his promises have already been retracted. So I just think it's going to have the complete adverse effect.
Again, I think Plan A and Plan B are the same thing. I don't see a difference in Plan A or Plan B. I think when you look at Plan A, I mean, I'm going to tax the wealthiest New Yorkers. I'm going to tax the highest performing corporations. They're not leaving. What are they going to do? They're going to be like, oh, okay, you're raising my property tax? Okay, yeah, so milk's going to be $8 a carton. Eggs are going to be $10 a carton. And you're going to absorb the cost. The working class schmucks are going to absorb the cost. That's it. I own a property. I own. I'm a wealthy building owner. You're taxing me. Okay, no problem. Yeah, your rent's going up $1,000 a month. I feel like making a little bit more money too. So not only am I going to pay the tax with that money, I want another $200 on top of it put in my pocket just because I had to do a little bit more work. And I don't blame them. That's what everybody's going to do, right? And then you go to Plan B. I'm gonna raise your property taxes, and I'm gonna raid all your promised benefits from the city. I'm gonna raid all those funds. Guess what happens? Cost of goods are going to go up, rent's going to go up, your cost of living is going to go up, and you're going to get harmed. Either way, you're getting harmed. Either way, the working class people of New York City suffer. So what I'm really watching is Zohran Mamdani be the Zohran. He's being a magician, and he literally has everybody fooled that like there's a difference between plan A and plan B, and there's nothing we could do. There's nothing that we could do. We can't do anything because Eric Adams was a corrupt bastard and mismanaged all this money. And while that's true, I'm not denying any of that. I mean, I was barking on here for 3 years telling you Eric Adams is robbing you blind. Eric Adams and his cronies, the Crumbs crew, are robbing you blind, and they're a bunch of incompetent buffoons who couldn't run a hot dog stand, the most profitable hot dog stand in New York City. It would go broke in 48 hours the way they run things. So I'm not denying any of that's true. But when you look at this kid, 33 years old, ran for mayor, he sat there and he preached affordability, and yet he's doubling down on the same old failed policies. Is he sitting here and telling you, well, I'm going to cut services here. You know, we're going to look at a little fat in this agency here. We're going to try to cut that. We're going to cut back here. No, he's not doing any of it. You think right now your tax money is getting used properly? You think right now all of the agencies that are getting your money are using your tax dollars properly? But no, you know, we can't expect the mayor to manage the budget. We can't expect the mayor to manage the agencies. We can't expect the mayor to manage the hundreds of millions of dollars that are flowing out of New York City every month. No, that's impossible. What we got to do is somebody's got to pay me more money so that I could keep throwing money at bad shit. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's honestly, it's when people sit there and they're even arguing between A and B, I'm just like, yeah, change the channel. Click, turn it off. I don't want to hear it. Why is the mayor not managing the budget? Why is he not sitting there and looking where he could cut the fat? You know, he's sitting there and he's telling you, you have a budget deficit. First, he told you it was $12 billion. And then him and Kathy Hochul worked hard and they got it down to about $5 billion. And so, you know, that's the budget deficit you work with. But then when you look at New York City budget, it was $116 billion in the last year, and he's raising it to $122 billion. There's your budget deficit right there, you moron. You're spending more money. What are you talking about? We don't expect our politicians to be able to manage our budgets anymore. We don't expect our agency heads to be able to stay within budgets and be able, like, look, I'm never for cutting police services or anything like that, but I'd be lying. I'd be totally lying if I'd sit here and say that the NYPD is a well-oiled machine. They're much more well-oiled than the rest of the agencies in New York City. But do you think that even just looking at them, do you think that they're running their budget properly? Do you think there's not millions and millions of dollars that can't be saved? Look at the DOE. $40 billion of the 122. $40 billion to a failed agency. Kids are coming out of high school, they can't read, they can't do basic math. $40 billion. You're telling me you can't cut the fat there somewhere? Is that what you're telling me, Zohran? Because what you're really telling me is just like Eric Adams, you're an incompetent buffoon that's keeping the grift going in New York City. You're no different than de Blasio. You're no different than Adams. And hopefully you're going to be a one-term mayor because you showed your cards right off the bat. You're no different than anybody else. And FYI, for all you morons that voted for Cuomo, you would have got the same damn shit if you would have voted for him.
Yeah, John made some good points there. And he's right. You would have gotten the same thing because we were talking about his budget issues for years now. And it was coming. Even Eric Adams mentioned it too, you know. But instead of him helping to fix the problem, he instead, you know, gave the migrants $10K a month in debit cards. So instead of putting them on a bus back to the Texas border, he gave them $10K debit cards and put them up in fancy hotels in Manhattan. And like we talked about, that entire scheme was really a backdoor bailout of Manhattan hotels. Okay, because had it not been the shelter money, a lot of those hotels would have been even more insolvent than they already are, you know. But to John's point again, I spotted this online as well. This is the DOE budget that John talks about. 40% hit. 40% to a failing agency, with very little to show in actual accomplishments, And also something to think about here is Zohan has appointed a migrant czar, so to speak. Okay, she's going to be auditing every agency in the city to make sure their policies align with the city's sanctuary city status. And again, if you're really serious about the budget, right? If you're really serious about the budget, wouldn't you want to cooperate with ICE? Okay, because again, those migrant services are being paid for by somebody. Okay, so wouldn't you at least, even if you want a sanctuary city, wouldn't you at least want the worst people in these shelters to be shipped back home? Okay, so that the people that you're actually keeping in the shelter are actually productive people, and not the people victimizing a lot of these neighborhoods in the city. Okay, and to that also, keep in mind another 1.2 billion is going for that, for migrant spending. So yeah, we're busy draining the rainy day fund and paying 1.2 billion for people who are here illegally, right? Who probably don't contribute taxes, right? So it's you when you see things like this, I just gotta wonder, how serious is he really with cutting the budget? Is he really just kicking the can down for until next year? Like all these, like really Eric Adams did,
So I think obviously you need economic growth in New York City, and I think that if you're in a position of mayor and you have to manage the budget, I would say you can't cut essential services. And when I say essential services, I'm talking about the essential services that are frontline, and that your firemen, your cops, obviously your teachers that are on the front line doing the job. These are essential services, sanitation, things like that. Those services have to be provided for New York City. They have to be funded properly, especially public safety, right? We have to talk about public safety is paramount, right? Now, however, I think the problem with New York City is administrative bureaucracy. What do I mean by that? Is a lot of these agencies have an extreme amount of overlap of positions that are kind of redundant. That's where I think we need to do a deep dive into all these agencies and to look at the administrative functions. Now, do we need administrative functions? Yes, but there's a lot of overlap, whether it's in the fire department, in the NYPD, for the teachers, Department of Education, even in sanitation. There's a lot of overlap with these administrative positions, especially look at the NYPD at the top. There are numerous positions where we don't need another chief. There's a chief in every spot. And so I believe there's a lot of administrative bureaucracy, and that's where I think we should start cutting the fat. I don't think we need to cut essential services, but if we did a deep dive into that, especially like when it comes to DCAS, a lot of the stuff is overlapped and redundant, and it's already being done by one agency, and it's monotonous, and it's being done by another agency. And I think that this idea of going right after people's property taxes, now you're hurting the economic wheel of New York City. And that, to me, you're either going to make rich people and businesses, not just people that live there, but you're going to make businesses leave. And if businesses do stay, exactly that, they're going to jack up the prices, and no one's going to be able to afford it either. And that's where the housing market really starts to get crushed. And as I said earlier, especially if interest rates go down. If interest rates go down, it's not a great thing, because immediately there's going to be no supply. And with no supply, things go up. And that's a problem. And I think that we also have to cut other services that we haven't heard about, right? Like these violence interrupters, which we have no idea how much they make or what they're doing. This whole idea of this social worker apparatus that Zohran Mamdani wants to implement. The police department is what we should be focused on, and not trying to add more funds that we don't even know if it's going to work. And to be honest, it's not going to work. We all know, because we have expertise in policing. So Zohran Mamdani, in my opinion, has already failed. Eric Adams was a failure before, so you're getting the same thing. Failure upon failure. This is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. The young people that stood behind Zohran Mamdani, this is exactly what everyone told you, is that these promises are empty. It's going to fall flat as fates, as we're not even 90 days in. Not even 90 days, it's completely crumbling. His whole campaign was built on affordable housing, and now it's going to be completely a 180 turn where no one's going to be able to afford anything. And I see a lot of information in the chat here talking about pensions, and some people saying, "Thank God it's guaranteed." No, it's not. I mean, look at cities like Chicago, look at cities like Detroit, Baltimore. Your pension in New York City and New York State is a lot stronger than it is in other places. Yes, there's definitely a better system in the New York Police Pension Fund, but it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee, and it can be affected. And if it's not spent properly, I mean, if you look back, right, a good prediction of the future is a reflection of the past. And look how the variable supplement actually was implemented for the New York City Police Pension Fund, because the city was hurting and they had to borrow money, and that was a return on an investment for the unions at the time. So this is, like I said, I think we should look at administrative bureaucracy, and I think that's a place I would start cutting.
Well, I mean, I watched the Monday show. I listened to it after the show. I wasn't able to watch it live, but you guys were talking about how basically all these cities are auditing for, to make the ice proof, right? They were ice proof and everything. And so Zohran Mamdani is going to spend millions of dollars with this audit team, and the audit team is going to do exactly what Marlon said they're going to do. Is they're going to look to find any trace. They're going to look under every rock. Oh, did this person get deported? And it's not going to matter if you were just doing your duty, like whatever it is, like you work with the feds, maybe you're in a task force, and you put a warrant out on somebody because they're wanted for guns or they're wanted for this, and you make a mention to the fact that possibly they're here illegal, or you didn't. You just put their name in the system. You put their name, their date of birth, whatever it is, and then later they're deported, or ICE is looking for them, or ICE has a detainer for them. You did nothing wrong. You did what you were supposed to do. You did what you were trained to do. You weren't cooperating with ICE, but you did what was required of you. New York City is going to spend millions of dollars in this budget crisis to look over every rock, and then to find some people that they can hang and be like, look what we found. Look what we found. We found this cop that was working with ICE. We're gonna charge him criminally. We're gonna fire him. And yet we can't do an audit of our finances. Why not? You can't audit every city agency. Why not? And I laugh at it because Sleepy Joe said, option C is, well, we're just going to do both eventually. And that's really what the truth of the matter is like, eventually, whatever option you pick, A or B, you're ultimately going to get all of them. And, for everyone asking, like, they're obviously about our pensions. We showed you that he wants to raid our healthcare funds, right? And we'll show you the clip of where he talks about that, where he's going after retiree healthcare savings. And for those of you guys that are working, that have the dumb thought, well, I'm still working, I'll just work till I'm 100. It's like, nah, dude, it doesn't work like that to kick you off at 63, bro. That's when you're gonna need the healthcare, dude. So you better start getting your act together. You better start sitting there and saying, why is my union gearing up to give Zohran Mamdani Man of the Year awards? Why is my union going to back Kathy Hochul? Why is my fraternal going to give Zohran Mamdani a leadership award? Why are we doing that? You better start waking up, because right now it's your healthcare savings fund, rainy day. But, he's going to put it back in 2028. Don't worry about it. He's going to put it back. If you trust him. I don't, but you might. You might have thought Andrew Cuomo changed, but I don't. So you might, and if you think Andrew Cuomo changed, then you should believe Mamdani that in 2028 he'll take your money and he'll put it back there. But do you think he could go after your pension funds? Absolutely, they could go after your pension funds. Look who's on the board of your pension funds. Do you think they wouldn't fold in a heartbeat? So right now, our pension fund's fully self-funded. We have huge overages in it. It's doing very well. And it's definitely a place that, hey, we have no choice. We have no choice. It's either we're going to tax the rich here, or I got to raise your retirement funds. I got to raise your pension funds. And, don't worry, I'll pay you back. I'll pay you back. And then what's going to happen? They're never going to pay you back. Then he's going to be pushing to raise your taxes. And then what's going to happen? The entire voter base is going to say, why is my taxes getting raised to pay for these stupid cop salary? And then guess what's going to happen? Your pension's going to get diminished. And then it's going to get diminished again. So could this happen? Yeah. What the fuck do you think we've been screaming about for the last 3 years? I sit online and I get these messages and people send them to me and they infuriate me. And I just don't respond to them because I think that you are all so dumb that I can care less what you have to say. But they send me messages and clips. People in these law enforcement pages, the dumbest people on earth, literally, retired NYPD cops, the stupidest fucking people I ever seen in my life. They're in these law enforcement pages and they're like, what do these guys care about this? They retire from the job. And you know what it says with them? There's a little star. It says top contributor. It's like, oh, what do I care about the job that I work for that pays me a salary still in retirement? The one that I get my health care from? The one that feeds my children, that keeps a roof over my head? What do I care about it for, right? You don't care. You're just a top contributor in a law enforcement page making stupid fucking comments, right? And then guess what? We're sitting here, we're trying to fucking push back at these politicians, and you're blowing them, and you're blowing your union, and you're blowing your fraternals. And you have no idea that they're robbing from you and your children and your future. It's ridiculous, dude. It's honestly, it's infuriating. Could your pensions be touched? It's not could, it's when. It's when. That's the route we're going. It's not could my pension be touched. It's when is your pension going to get touched? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years?
Yeah. At this rate, well, let's keep in mind also that all the three card Mamdani politicians that were running for the mayor, in one way or the other, they all said they were going to touch your pension. Okay. And the way they said it is they're going to use it to invest in what essentially affordable housing. Okay. They're going to make you the bag holder of affordable housing. Okay. So that's coming. Okay. That's coming. Right. Something to keep in mind is that commercial real estate right now, right, it is not in a good place. Right. And a lot of these investments they want to do, the banks aren't going to want to do it. Okay. So they're going to need somebody who's going to be the bag holder. And you know who that bag holder is going to be? It's going to be you. Okay. Yeah. So that's coming. But let's go back to what's going on right now, right? So one of the things Mamdani is going to raid is, as John mentioned, is the Retiree Health Benefit Trust. Okay. Now, this isn't the first time it's been raided. The only difference is that after that in 2019, the rainy day fund was started separately from that, right? To prevent it from being raided. Okay. Because de Blasio took $1 billion out of it, and that money was never repaid. Okay. Now, this is a problem because they haven't even maintained the rainy day fund to the level it should be. Okay. Because the federal government states that the rainy day fund should be around 19%. Okay. And that is considered healthy. Right. But as you can see right now, New York City is, it's not at nowhere near that healthy range. Okay. This is a list of the top 20 cities in America. Now, as you can see, what's curious enough is all the cities that are we all know are doing well because businesses are going there and people are going there. They all for the most part, they all have rainy day funds in very at very healthy levels. Okay, and actually, it's not 19%. I'm sorry, it's around 16% that the Fed say is a healthy amount, right? So you see at the top here, New York is at a critical level because our rainy day fund is only at $1.96 billion. Okay, And keep in mind, they are going to take 280 million out of that. Okay. So again, we have a budget that's over $127 billion. Well, the one that's being proposed now by Mamdani. And the rainy day fund is only at 1.96 billion. So you have to ask yourself, right? Where are they going to get the revenue to replenish this? Certainly in the next year or two. Mamdani's saying 2028, he's going to put the money back. I want to know how he's going to do that. I want to know what are they seeing in the markets that's going to give New York City the revenue to replenish it. Okay. And the question is, if you don't replenish your rainy day fund, right? What are you, where are we getting the money from next time? Yeah. What creative accounting are they going to do next time to get the money? So
I'm glad that we're talking about the pension. And unfortunately, a lot of people are stupid and blind to the pension, and they never really do their own homework to really understand the pension. They go to these pension seminars, which is just kind of a blip. And I think that pension seminars are not very informative. I've been to one, and I've read a lot of information. I've done my homework on what the pension is, how it works. So, and I'm glad our chat, our friends and listeners are really jumping in. We should all be invested in this conversation, especially if you're active NYPD or retired, or active or retired in another law enforcement agency or another agency in New York City or New York State or throughout this country, so that you can really get a better understanding of how a pension system works. Now, what's unique about the NYPD pension is its own police pension fund. So shout out here to Nikolatsamikas. Is that it? Looks like a Greek name. $12.99. Nikolatsamikas says pensions are protected by New York State Constitution. Great conversation. That is true. That is true. Your pension is protected by the Constitution. However, what's interesting about the pension, it's not backed by the federal government. And I think we could actually make a comparison. Let's say, talk about Social Security, right? Social Security is guaranteed. That's backed by the federal government. Your pension is not backed by the federal government. So is it guaranteed? The answer is no. Now, New York City has never defaulted on a pension, but it has had issues where they had to change amortization schedules, things like that with pensions. They've changed their investments. And if we face a severe financial crisis or bankruptcy, your pension can be guaranteed. It could be affected and extremely affected in those positions. And so are we there? Are we there at a point of severe financial crisis and potential bankruptcy? And the answer is yes. And Zohran Mamdani is not trying to, as John said earlier, trim the fat on other agencies and find administrative bureaucracy to cut. He's not even looking at that. Because while Marlon brought up a fantastic point, and we spoke about it on Monday, with his executive order in regards to immigration as far as sanctuary city, that's going to require a deep dive into emergency support services for the migrants or the legal military age males that are harboring in New York City that need these services, food, shelter, housing. And where do you think that comes from? It comes from the burden of the taxpayer. Now, when it comes to the pensions, they're not backed by the federal government. They're backed by the taxpayer. It's a taxpayer burden. So if all these taxpayers leave New York City, that is part of a financial crisis, and these pensions can be affected. So you have to understand how it works. New York City Police Pension Fund is different than a private fund that actually is backed by insurance. And this we don't have here in New York City. So it's far different. You have to get a real deep understanding that they have not been touched. They're pretty strong, but it's not impossible. If there is severe financial crisis or bankruptcy, these pensions can be shorthanded. Look at the history. They have changed the amortization schedules before. They've changed the investments. I know, John, you were talking about the investments. Right now, it's really strong, but that could change. And let's hope it's not. We have to pay attention.
I mean, look, I think the argument's ridiculous at this point to even say that your pension's guaranteed. One, the state constitution opens up, right? And you vote to open that up. Do you think once New York City residents and New York State residents taxes go through the roof, that they're not going to open up that state constitution and change your pension? You're out of your mind. You besides ICE, police officers are the most hated people in society. Besides ICE. ICE took your place in the past couple of months. Congratulations, you're no longer number one. You're out of your mind if you think they. So this is what's happening now in Washington State. Now, I always tell you, you don't have to, like, it doesn't matter. We talk about New York City, but it doesn't matter if you took this conversation to LA, to Chicago, to Seattle. The faces change, the names change. It's all the same politics. It's all the same policies. They name it a little different. It's all the same grift. They're stealing and robbing the taxpayers blind, all in the same way. The narratives are all the same. The stupid crime is down, perception versus reality. Everything is exactly the same. Right now, Zohran Mamdani is raiding retiree healthcare, right? Right now. Tomorrow, it's going to sound like this. This just happened. This is in Washington State. Why don't you take a listen for all the my pension's guaranteed. Nobody's going to take my pension yet. Well, maybe they'll start waking the fuck up then.
We take our finger and press this button tonight. That is a $4 billion vote. And the next thing will be an income tax and many other taxes. After the largest tax increases in state history, and all the while a spending addiction that is totally out of control.
These are retired firefighters. These are retired police officers who have worked so hard. And then when they see the hands of Olympia reaching in to take their retirement, they take it personal.
We have spent so much money in so many ways on so many unsustainable programs that we've forced ourselves into a hole that a year after we have record increases in taxes, over $9 billion of new taxes, we're immediately coming back and asking our retirees to shoulder a massive shift of their funds to balance the budget.
If this were a private corporation, we'd be screaming bloody murder that they were raiding their employees' pension funds.
We are continuing to spend more than we take in, and we're going to come back next year and we're going to even have a worse deficit.
We have record revenues, Madam Speaker. We have a record $78 billion budget. And despite slowing revenues, our revenues still continue to climb. We don't need to raid the left one pension.
Oh, raid. Wow, that's weird. That almost sounds like the same exact language that Zohran Mamdani's using. That almost sounds like the same exact problem that you're facing in New York City. No, we can't cut spending. No. We cannot lower the budget of the embroidery. Like, there is no way embroidery needs to happen. You know, we're telling you that we're in a budget deficit. This is what Zohran Mamdani's giving out to violence interventions. The front of this thing's embroidered. The arms are embroidered. The back's embroidered. We're giving out $600 pop jackets with leather to violence interventions while he's sitting there and telling you he's going to raise your property taxes. And you're not furious? You think everything's good? Yeah, your health care is going to be there. Your pension's going to be there. You're not furious? Our forefathers would be turning in their grave. They would have pitchforks in front of City Hall right now, and they would be looking for a head. And you're all sitting here going, no, the law is going to protect me. Nah, yeah, Kathy Hochul's going to protect my pension. Yeah. Okay. You're going to be paying for embroidery for these fucking morons is what you're going to be doing. And they're going to raid every single thing you have because you're not awake. You're not paying attention. You're not following what has happened throughout this whole country. Nin's sitting there and he's asking me, how do I feel about the president? I think, honestly, it's the same thing. I had a choice between plan A and plan B, and ultimately I got C, which is shit. I got the same thing I would have got with Kamala Harris that I got with Donald Trump. You know, Kash Patel looks like a woke DEI hire who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, sitting there tweeting about crime is down and safest America's ever been. Sounds like a moron. Sounds just like Eric Adams' cronies in New York City. Pam Bondi looks like she's totally unqualified for her position. Dan Bongino's back on a podcast and telling everybody how great he was and what he did to solve the Epstein crisis. I mean, and half of you idiots are still listening to him. I mean, so yeah, ultimately, how do I feel about it? I got played. because I had faith that, yeah, you know what, we were going to take this country in a different direction, and ultimately what we're doing is taking this country in a really bad direction. So maybe you all should have listened when we told you to vote for Curtis Lewa and not listen to Donald Trump when he told you to vote for Andrew Cuomo, right? Maybe just maybe.
Yeah, I Nin is on here every day, and he still thinks we're like cheerleaders for like Trump, I mean, just because we vote for him doesn't mean we can't criticize him, guy, But listen, we have been talking about this for a while, and many other people have been talking about this too. I don't understand. Like, anytime I personally tell cops, listen, you got to go to your unions, you got to talk about this stuff, because they all seem to think like there's some magical money tree somewhere in City Hall that your pension's guaranteed. Now, before the job got rid of me, I went to one of the union meetings, and I specifically asked Steve McQuaid, who is the DEA lawyer. I asked him, Steve, in a crisis, can the city can they readjust our pensions? Can they make adjustments to it? And he told me, yeah, in an emergency, why can't they? If they don't have the money, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna go pluck a leaf, pluck a couple of million from that magical money tree in the basement of City Hall? It just doesn't work that way, And like I said, many people have been talking about this looming pension crisis. Okay, this article in particular is from the Rand Corporation, from the Rand Foundation, and this has been a big issue that's looming. Okay, the fact is that a lot of pension funds have been underfunded, and they've been pilfered. And as you can see, what's happening right now with the retiree health trust, they're taking money out of it to plug the gaps in their budget. Okay, and again, this is a problem. This is a looming problem, and people like Zohan, and Eric Adams before him they're kicking the can down the road. Okay, and they're not. No one's is proposing a long-term sustainable plan for all of this. Okay, they're all hoping that whatever happens doesn't happen underneath their watch. But the problem is that there are already massive problems in there before you started looking to borrow funds from borrow funds or looking to use the pension fund money as investments. So guys who think that your pension is like guaranteed, you need to wake up and realize that your nothing is guaranteed. Hey, in an emergency, everything gets tossed to the wind. As we saw a couple of years ago, apparently even the Constitution gets tossed to the wind during an emergency, right? So why wouldn't you think adjustments would be made to your pension? It happened in Detroit, and it could happen here. Okay, it's not that complicated, really.
I think it's far more simplistic than we've actually made it out to be. I mean, I think it's pretty surprising to me, right? I speak to so many cops, and I know you mentioned it earlier, John, that just like, oh no, like nothing can ever happen. Like, why do you guys care? You should care. And now we're talking about retirement, right? We're talking about retirement, but let's talk about active members, right? If you're active right now, you're like, I don't have to worry about this. I retire in 15 years or even 10 years. It's not going to happen to me. Or maybe you're at that 15-year mark and you're saying, you know what? Mamdani is going to be mayor for 4 years. He won't have a second term. By then, I'll hit my 19, 20 year. I'll be about to retire, and I'll have a new mayor then. Maybe that's what you say. But if you don't think that this fiscal crisis will carry over to the next 10 years, you have to wake up. But if you're an active member right now, you should be concerned with this, because when you get your pension, when you get your paycheck and you make your pension contribution, if the city goes into a severe fiscal crisis or even bankruptcy, the city will not be able to make that contribution that matches your contribution. So you only have half of the contribution to your pension. So you could get a reduced pension also. So think about that. We're talking about retirees, but if you're active right now, you need to be engaged in this conversation also. I know plenty of cops like, I don't have to worry about my pension. I'm not going to a seminar. First of all, the seminars are useless, but you need to read about it anyway, because if you're active, and I'm sure you guys agree, if you're active right now, when you make that contribution, if the city goes into extreme fiscal crisis, how are they going to match that contribution? How is that money going to be deposited into your pension if they don't have the money? So you need to wake up and, well, I'm not retired. I don't have to worry about it. No, if you're working for a city agency in New York City, you have to be concerned right now whether you're active or retired, because this affects you. Just like John and I told you a long time ago when we sat down with Miriam Pizziola, and we told you, you have to be concerned with your health care. Oh, we spoke to cops. Oh, I got 5 years on the job. I don't have to worry about that. No, when you're active, you have to worry about it, because that could affect you also. So if you think it's just retirees, you need to wake up as an active member, because it affects you too.
So it's funny. So Juju's saying we're fiat merchants. Juju, it's a great point. I mean, you're missing the point. The fiat merchants are the people that told you that if you get a cold, it's the worst thing in the world. So we have to suspend the Constitution of the United States, and you have to give up all your rights as a human to breathe air, to have bodily autonomy. The same people that told you my body, my choice, those people, when they said suspend, those are the fiat merchants. If you go back 2 years, what was I calling Mark Levine, who's now your city controller? I was saying he's a fear porn peddler. And now Zohran Mamdani has replaced him, right? Here it is. Listen to the fear porn. Listen to it. I want to play 2 clips for you. Here's one.
Mayor, I had 2 questions also. One of the ways you're balancing the budget, as you've said, is to pretty significantly draw down these reserves. They're, generally intended for even more dire times than this one, perhaps, like a recession. I'm just wondering if this, I know this is just your first offer and there's a negotiation coming, but how committed are you to drawing down the reserves as substantially as you have in this? And my second question is, when do your labor negotiations start, and have you budgeted any kind of placeholder for that?
So I'll start with the first question. If we can actually bring the slide back to this, exactly, right here. So what the second path forces us to do is to utilize the rainy day fund and the retiree health benefits trust reserve. Now, as you can see in fiscal year 28, we do put investments back into those very reserves because we want the city to be on firm financial footing. However, there is a reason that we did not include these in our city's attempts to get to 5.4 billion, because these are the rating of reserves that we do not want to pursue. These are the kinds of reserves that what we would rather do is ensure that they remain as they are so that the city can be on firm financial footing. However, in order to get to this point of closing the gap on both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we are forced to raid the rainy day fund, the retiree health benefits trust reserve, and to increase property taxes across these other years.
So that's my first clip of fear porn. That's what you just witnessed from Zohran Mamdani. And let me show you him peddle another clip of fear porn for you, where he sits there and he tells you, we must do this. We have no choice. There's nothing else we could do. And you're sitting here and telling us we're fear merchants. We're the ones that are telling you that not only can he manage the budget, he should manage the budget. He should sit there and he should go and audit all of the agencies and see where we could cut funds. But instead of cutting funds, he's telling you you only have 2 options. Your 2 options are either your cost of living goes up or your cost of living goes up. And there's nothing we could do because of Eric Adams and his incompetence. So I'm going to double down on Eric Adams and his corruption and his incompetence. So this is fear porn clip number 2, Juju. Pull your pants down. Get yourself a little lotion.
I know that for those who have watched budget after budget, it is tempting to assume that we are engaging in the same dance as our predecessors. Let me assure you, nothing about this is typical. That's why our solutions won't be either. There are 2 paths to bridge this gap. The first is the most sustainable and the fairest path. This is the path of ending the drain on our city and raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. The onus for resolving this crisis should not be placed on the backs of working and middle-class New Yorkers. If we do not fix this structural imbalance and do not heed the calls of New Yorkers to raise taxes on the wealthy, this crisis will not disappear. It will simply return, year after year, forcing harder and harsher choices each time. And if we do not go down the first path, the city will be forced down a second, more harmful path. Faced with no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes. We would also be forced to raid our reserves. To balance the budget as required by law, our preliminary budget takes the only path within our control, the second path. The options of the second path are the options of last resort, options that we will only employ if there is no other means of arriving at a balanced budget.
So we can't manage our incompetence. We can't spend less money. We can't do any of that stuff. We have to make these very hard choices. And the choices that we're going to make later are going to be even harder. But yeah, Juju, your pension's protected, bro. Don't worry. Look, if there's a breakdown of society, not going to be good for you, my friend. Not going to be good for you. It's just not. I'm sorry. I'll be all right.
Yeah. I saw a comment in there, right? From Steve. Let's see. From Stephen D. He's saying that the controller oversees 5 pensions. If they take one, they take all. He thinks because of the teachers union and it's not a Department of Education. We'll sit back and let that happen. Here's the problem with that, Stephen. The problem with that is they can easily protect the teachers and sell you out. Okay? Keep in mind, as we mentioned this before, look at that 40%. Look at that. 40%
Where's the police on that? Where's the police? Oh, 7%. Measly. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And remember, they've just spent, I would say, close to a decade demonizing police, right? Making you the enemy of the common man, okay? And now, since COVID, even conservatives look at you sideways now because of what you did during COVID, okay? So they spent a decade making cops the enemy of the common man. They can, and in addition to that, remember, you just had 4 years of Eric Adams, and what have we heard from the department? We've heard about the overtime mismanagement. We've heard of them doling out sex for overtime, doling out overtime for sex. Okay, so you think the public already sees NYPD in a good light? No, they don't. They assume now that you're all abusing the overtime, and that you're all just getting it willy-nilly. So don't think for a second that the city can't sell you out while saving the teachers union. Okay, they can easily do that. Okay, and by saving the teachers union, they already have a loyal a voter base with the teachers, right? They don't with you. Okay, they know the teachers. If they save them, the teachers will go out there and vote for them, and they'll toe the party line, whereas you won't. Okay, so don't think for a second that they can't sell you out. And something else to think about, I'm not, even the numbers that they're telling us right now, I'm not sure they're being honest here. Okay, and the reason why I'm saying that is because you look at this figurehead, you look at the bottom, the total revenues, right? If you look at 2028, we're still negative, right? We still got gaps in 2028, even with what they want to do, right? This is what Zohran proposing, okay? Right? So, I don't think they're being honest. And one of the reasons why I don't think they're being honest is because the commercial properties are down in the market, especially office properties. And big cities like New York, San Francisco, Boston all depend upon a lot of the revenue that comes out of that industry. And the problem is that industry is getting downsized, AI, remote work. And a lot of those buildings in Manhattan are no longer as profitable as they once were, and they're no longer solvent. And what's happening now is a lot of them are being sold for 70% off, or in some cases defaulting. And what's going to happen is this is going to impact the tax revenue, the commercial tax revenue, and especially the commercial office property tax revenue. Those are going to create even bigger budget gaps that I don't think they plan for yet, because in a lot of ways, it hasn't hit the books yet, and it's slated to hit the books between 2027 and 2030. So
here's something else to look at, which I think people don't often realize. Which I think if we're headed down this path, this is where I think they may go. So when it comes to active members, right, we're talking a lot about retirees, but when we talk about active members in the NYPD right now, most active NYPD members either get in the 457 deferred compensation plan or the 401k plan as a supplement to their pension. But what I think could happen if we get into this fiscal crisis and Zohran Mamdani moves forward his plan, and if it gets as bad and this bubble becomes and just completely burst, we could get to a point where they have to eradicate the pensions for new members. There'll be no tier, and your only option will be a 457 or a 401k, and you'll be working as a private employee. Now, there are some benefits to a private 401k or 457, but I think that's a great supplemental tool to Social Security. And the beauty about an NYPD pension is it's not supplemental to your Social Security. Most NYPD members retire with a good pension that you could survive without your Social Security, and your Social Security is just kind of a bonus factor and not really considered. Well, most people in private industry, when they retire close to the age of 62 because they're dependent upon Social Security to supplement their 401k or 457. Now, when it comes to your 401k and 457, you could do very well, but it also depends on the market. And it's usually a smaller contribution from that private agency. The NYPD pension usually is about 3 to 6% pension contribution from the city based on your salary and overtime. But if you're working for a private industry, it's usually about 3 to 5% in that steady as far as the contribution. So that's where I think something can go. Also, we're talking about a tax structure here. New York City and New York State is already one of the highest tax-based structure in the entire country already. So the tax burden it has already been met. Why would businesses at this point even stay? Why would they consider staying? This is just a complete idiot ideology. That's why I always have a problem with Democrats, especially these Democrat socialists. John showed you that picture earlier of a violence interrupted with brand new embroidery. So sometimes it feels like the Democrats, well, let's make sure we give some of these services that we don't need. We'll pay them out. And then, we have no money left. Instead of saying, here's a bucket. This is how much we have for this agency. This is how much we have for that agency. And then figure it out. Instead, they give out all the money and then, there's nothing left. And what's the last resort? Tax the rich. And some people say, okay, tax the rich. Guess what? If you tax the rich, the only two economic wheels that would be left in New York City is extremely poor and extremely rich. Say goodbye to the middle class. There'll be no more middle class in New York City. And if you want to know what that looks like, go to places like Baltimore. There is no middle class. It's either super rich and you live in a beautiful neighborhood in Baltimore, or you're super poor and you're living somewhere it's condemned. There is no middle class, and that can happen to New York City.
You know, and the thing is, like, what the cops don't realize, like, this Christmas, everybody's going to be taking photos with Zohran Mamdani. You know, he's going to get the Man of the Year. He's going to get the leadership awards. And your cost of living and your quality of life and your quality of work is going to go down, especially for the NYPD. Because, again, the defund the police movement is still in part of his agenda. It's a serious, serious part of his agenda. Here's his budgeting now, right? So basically his funding for the police is flat from 2025 and 2026, right? 2026, 6.8 million, right? For 2027, which he's budgeting, Adams budgeted that 6.8 billion, right? So 2027, 6.6 billion. 2028, it goes to 6.7 billion. Stays 6.7 billion. 2029, 2030, 6.7 billion. That is when he's showing flat, and then when you go over to like social services, 14 billion. Next year, 14 billion. Next year, 15 billion. Next year, 15 billion. Next year, 16 billion. You see them consistently increase, but the police department budget's not increasing. It's staying exactly the same. What he's telling you is he's not going to be funding the NYPD properly. And he's going to be reducing the headcount of the NYPD and not hiring. And that budgeted amount is actually going to lower because he's not going to be able to keep it the same. Why? Because things get more expensive. Like if today I want to build a house or I want to build a building that's going to take a year or two, I'm going to sign an escalation clause, right? Because the cost of goods are going to go up. The cost of everything's going to go up in the next year with inflation. And so the builder doesn't want to get left out to dry. So he's going to charge me basically for this year and what he's going to pay for the goods and the services next year as well. And what he's showing you is, no, we don't need to do that with the police. And you're like, wait a minute, why wouldn't you need to do that with the police? Of course you would need to do it with the police. You do it with everybody else. Why not the police? And it's because it's not part of his agenda. You know, that's why he's not doing it with the police. And then when you go over to his other funding, why is this not going down? When you go over to his other funding, what it shows that the police really are not part of the agenda at all when you look at the capital budget, because the capital budget this is not for police goods or services, right? This is for repairs. This is for repairs for your facilities. This is for upgrading your facilities. This is for your training facilities. And what he does there is he basically does not give you a fair shake at anything. What he does is he basically leaves the NYPD as the lowest budgeted agency for capital improvements. And when you think about that, people are like, oh, what's the big deal? What did Adams do? What did this do? It doesn't matter what they did. Is it right of what they did? Is it proper? It doesn't matter what was done in the past. Should it have been done in the past? You look at commands like PSA-2. That command should be left for the birds. It shouldn't even be. We wouldn't even store records in that command, but yet we have officers going to that command. They have sewage leaking right into their locker room, into their gym. We wouldn't even put our records in there, but yet it's okay for cops to get changed in there and go work out in there. Health hazard, right? You look at a command like the 5th Precinct that was built in 1881, and these morons at one point wanted me to put an electric car charger there. And I'm like, where? In the middle of Canal Street? You know, you want me to put it in the middle of Canal Street? I'll drop it right in the middle, electric car charger.
You can't even park there. That's insane. John, that's insane. You can't even park in that place.
It's a fully attached townhouse, dude, that was built in 1881. Yet we're sitting here and those are egregious examples, but when you look at the majority of our facilities, police facilities, I think it's like 80% of them were built in the early 1800s. They're falling apart. They have foundational leaks. And regardless of the state that they're in currently or not, they're not built for modern day law enforcement. There's no parking for even the fleet of vehicles, never mind the employees, you know, and that's a huge issue. And so you sit there and you go, wait, the most heavily relied on agency in New York City, and that is a damn fact. We are the most heavily relied on agency in New York City. 24/7, 365. I don't care what's happening. The NYPD's got a hand in it. And you're not going to try to at least even upkeep our facilities? They don't even want to upkeep it. And no one's blinking an eye, of course, because it's all right, Mo.
Yeah, this goes back to that question by Steve D. You know, they can easily sell you out. Again, Mamdani showing you here that he's not prioritizing police. Okay, that he's very much happy with under budgeting police services. Even though, ironically, he states in the press release for this budget proposal that that part of the reason why things are the way they are is because the Adams administration under budgeted for a lot of services. So now,
so he's got to double down on it and do the same thing. So.
Yeah. Except for the police department, every other stupid initiative they want is fine. It's okay to toss another 280 million into the violence interrupters. Yeah. But yeah, it's this is I think we're at a curious point in our history. and I just don't see or like what the plan is going ahead, because it seems like we're playing defense right now when we really should be playing offense and trying to get more revenue without having to tax, burden the residents and citizens with more taxes or the businesses. And I just don't see a plan here. But interestingly enough, I actually think Kathy Hochul, by the way, she's doing a lot of building upstate, and I find it curious because in a lot of ways she would actually benefit from people like leaving New York and moving upstate. And I find what the dynamic between her and Mamdani very interesting now, especially since she's trying to walk a tightrope when being asked about giving more money to the city or being okay with the raising the corporate tax.
So I, excuse me. So I think where the voters for Zohran Mamdani will argue this, some people argue, and I think that it's a flawed argument, but the argument that I've heard is that higher taxes on the rich actually lower funding costs and also lower costs for rent for low income housing in New York City. Now, I think that argument completely falls on its face, because as I said earlier, if taxes are increased on the rich, particularly on just the rich or that small percentage in New York, they leave. So that argument is not even there. They're not going to stay. Why would they stay? They can relocate to Florida, and be warm, maybe not warm. I mean, John's wearing a long sleeve shirt, warmer in a nice environment, and still run their business.
It's a Sergio Bikini, all right. All right.
But that's what they really just don't understand how economics work. Yeah, it sounds great. Raise the taxes on the rich, and rents will be cheaper, and for low income or people that are really on the bottom of their ass right now. But it doesn't work like that, because these businesses just pick up and leave. Especially, the only good thing that came out of the draconian laws of COVID is everything's mostly virtual at this point, and you can work remote. And you have those opportunities. That's the only good thing that came out of it. So they can just pick up and leave. And then what happens? These rich apartments, no one buys them. They just sit there. That slows the tier of real estate in New York City. And what else happens? If the rich leave, that slows down construction. You'll see less construction projects. What you'll also see is less mixed-use projects. So those commercial projects that you wanted to see, they become empty lots. And that becomes an eyesore. And what happens when you have empty lots and eyesores in New York City? People leave. You have migration flight, and that hurts the city. You want people to stay. You want to build a tax base that people want to be there, and that's how it flourishes. Why would people stay in New York when you could go to a much more tax-friendly state, especially retirees? We talk about retirees. I would say the majority, only a few people I know actually retire and stay in New York State. While you could retire with your pension, go to somewhere where it's more affordable. I mean, a lot of the country has changed where it's not as affordable as it used to be, but there are still some places where it's affordable and much more tax-friendly. They're not going to stay. This plan, it just falls right in its face, and yet they're not telling you they're going to attack administrative bureaucracy. That'd be the first place that I would hit. Especially the NYPD. I'm not talking about the boots on the ground, the frontline cops, firemen, teachers, sanitation. We can't cut those people. That's front line. But I'm talking about these administrative positions that overlap each other that are just useless. Like, for instance, right now, the NYPD is a huge part of the economic apparatus. And yet, right now, with this fiscal crisis, Jessica Tisch is telling you that they're going to divide the Bronx into two separate boroughs. Well, that requires a whole another administrative apparatus. That means you need another chief. That means you need a whole administrative function. That costs money. Why do we need that right now? That, to me, that's completely unnecessary. If crime is so low as they say, and everything's doing fine, why would you have to make the change at this point? If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Well, and then the other thing is, like, I want to see, like, because this is just the initial proposed budget. But of course, they got to pass it so we can see what's in it, Because I'm curious, like, how much is going to these violence intervention program? I guarantee that funding went up. I guarantee it. I guarantee their funding went up. And where's his Department of Community Safety in here? I don't see it. Where is it? Where's that $1 billion? Or is it $1 billion, or is it more? Is it $2 billion? Or is it $4 billion? We don't know. Where is that money hidden? He said, "Oh, that's going to be in the executive budget." No. The preliminary budget should show us everything, but it doesn't. And I want to give a big shout out to New York City Council Speaker Julie Menon. Now, I don't agree with Julie on everything. I'd be lying if I said I did. But she was definitely the better choice of who was being nominated for Speaker. So I was relieved when she won. And I got to give her a shout out for pushing back at this, because she says today, this comes out from City Hall today, New York City Council Speaker Julie Menon and Council Member Linda Lee, chair of the Committee on Finance, issued the following statement on Mayor Zohran's preliminary budget proposal. The mayor's preliminary budget marks the beginning of a critical conversation about how we safeguard New York City's fiscal future while protecting New Yorkers. At a time when New Yorkers are already grappling with an affordability crisis, one that he ran that he was going to solve, dipping into rainy day reserves and proposing significant property tax increases should not be on the table whatsoever. The council believes there are additional areas of savings and revenue that deserve careful scrutiny before increasing the burden on small property owners and neighborhood small businesses, which could worsen the affordability crisis. And so, I mean, this is better than what we got at Adrienne Adams. I'll say that, because she didn't even know what the hell she was doing, but don't worry, she's going to be a lieutenant governor coming up. And so I like that she's pushing back on it. She should, because at the end of the day, does anyone believe Kathy Hochul that she's not going to raise tax on the wealthiest? Because that's what's going to happen. And a year from now, when the next budget comes, the property tax increases are going to come. And so are the rate of those reserve funds. And those hard decisions are going to keep making until it's going to get to the point when it's like, hey, you know what? We took care of you guys on the pension board for a long time. We took care of your kids for a long time. It's time to let us dip into those pension reserves. We need that money, just like they're doing in Washington State currently, right? So pay attention, people. Are you seriously don't know that your mic's on?
The best is going.
No,
The best.
I had a screen up in front of it, actually.
What's the best? I got a feeling that something you said was really important.
Well, I don't want to hear the excuses, because half the time I'm not looking at you guys and I'm looking at a different screen, so I don't want to hear any excuses.
Let me see this. Yeah. So what I was gonna say is,
Paul's doing his intel at the same time.
No, really, I got like a million screens up, but I was gonna point out that Mamdani actually proposed to raise the budget of the CMS system by $275 million. And
under embroidery, right? That's just the embroidery.
275%. Yeah. Well, that is part of it. The violence reduction program is part of it, and their budget under Eric Adams was $86 million. So he already said he was gonna. I haven't checked the proposal to see if he actually did it himself, if it's actually in there. But don't be surprised if it is, because that's what he said was going to happen. And we already said before that they'd like nothing better than to reduce police services and use cheaper civilians to perform a lot of those functions, like responding to certain 311 calls or mental health calls. So again, just to point out, he promised to do that, and now I think it's becoming a whole lot clearer why they want to civilianize a lot of the police functions, because they want to underfund the police department, and a great way of underfunding the police department while still performing a lot of those police functions would be to create a civilianized alternate department that does it, and does it for a lot cheaper. They don't have to pay pensions. They can underfund their healthcare. They could underfund their training. It's becoming really obvious why there's that push for that.
I think it's spot on. I mean, we often talk about what's the objective of this Department of Community Safety with social workers, when the reality is they would have to be trained. What would they be armed with? What would they be wearing? Because what are the costs affected by that, right? If you're running pretty much another quasi-type police department, that would have to be funded. So underfunding the NYPD, and if they actually don't do that and fund these social work and don't fund these social workers by not giving training and not wearing different uniforms and providing some type of weapons, well, that's where they would save money and go to those cuts. That's why I've been saying for a long time, maybe ultimately they're just looking to go to artificial intelligence anyway, because it's easy to say, hey, we tried this social worker program. It would cost too much money to have the training, and we'll just revert to artificial intelligence, which I think ultimately is the actual original plan. And I think that's the real plan. I think the real plan is defunding and underfunding and giving this quasi type of Department of Community Safety, and easily say, well, it just doesn't work. We've tried it. It doesn't work. And we'll go to artificial intelligence. And then everyone gets their money off these private contracts. Again, here's the wheel of New York City corruption that just keeps turning and turning and going in the same direction. What you got before with Eric Adams, nothing different now. It's the same shit, just smells different, and they're telling it in different verbiage. But they're telling you the same thing. They're telling you we have problems. I mean, Eric Adams told you with the migrant crisis that the city is headed for disaster. And Zohran Mamdani is just telling you that we're here. So to me, this is the plan the entire time, because no way, we're not even 90 days into it. And in less than 90 days into it, Zohran Mamdani has already told you the avalanche is here. Why didn't he tell you that November 4th when he was running? It wasn't that long ago. That's a major part of the component while he's running for mayor of New York City, especially in a city like New York City, where I told you before, and this is true, it's one of the highest tax rates in the entire country. That's something that's already known. And yet he's telling you that this fiscal crisis is damning. Yeah, we know it was damning. But what other plans, or what plan is actually in effect to cut the fat? That's why I say it's pretty interesting at this time. Jessica Tisch is going to split the Bronx into two separate boroughs, which means you need a huge administrative staff to run another borough. Where does that come from? That costs money. That means someone else has to be a chief. That means we need a whole administrative apparatus there. That costs money. Why are we not cutting that? But it's interesting, all these emergency support services, we haven't heard any potential cuts there. Why are we not hearing any cuts with this executive order as far as migrants go? So this is just another blight on New York City. And I just think people are going to run for the hills. I'm sure these big rich elites at this point are either laughing at this, because if you're an elite, it won't affect you, or people that are rich that are on the cusp, can we survive this, right? Because even the rich, they can't survive an economic avalanche. Could just be running for the hills. So I think not only could it hurt the real estate market, it could cause it to crash in New York City. And it could just be a complete collapsing effect. Again, especially if the interest rates go down, people have this idea, well, if interest rates go down, it's going to be affordable. I think actually it will have the adverse effect, especially if taxes go up and property taxes. Because if interest rates go down, the prices of the homes will be insane, because there's going to be no supply left. And now with higher property taxes, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, so personally, I don't think the rich flee at all. And even if they really flee, they just flee on paper. I think a system like this totally benefits them. And I think that, I'm not shilling for the rich. I could give two shits about them. But, I care about them just as much as they care about me or you. But, I mean, the thing is, you just have to be honest with it. If you raise taxes on big corporations, on wealthy corporations, they raise the price of goods on you. If you go after wealthy landlords, they raise the price of your rent. I mean, it's not hard math. You want to hold the rich accountable, hold them accountable criminally, hold them accountable financially. They basically have two sets of laws in this nation, one for schmucks like us and one for the rich people, and they're playing games. They're involved in bribery and all this other nonsense, and they don't get held accountable. So you want to hold the rich accountable, hold them accountable. But to sit there and say, oh, we're going to go after them and tax them, and you take that ultimately the working class of New York City is not gonna bear the brunt of that raise, you're out of your mind. It's a dishonest conversation. It's like, oh, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do it, but we're just gonna, they're gonna basically, you're the third party that's actually paying for it. And so what needs to be done is there needs to be an audit, and you need to look at all of the ways New York City is misspending money. And I just showed you it. I mean, it's laughable when we talk about it with this embroidery. It's funny, but it's not funny. I mean, how much money did Kaz Daughtry spend on embroidery and John Shell and Caban? And Zohran Mamdani's playing the same dress-up games. And now he's doing it with violence interventions, giving them $600 pop jackets. I mean, like, come on! You're sitting here telling us you're in a fiscal crisis, but you're raising CMS by 275%. Why? They're not even effective. Based upon what data? We showed you the New York City Comptroller's report. It was garbage. He's like, oh yeah, it brings down shootings, even though we don't have any data to prove it. It's like, what? What are we doing here? And so, but I am glad that you're here, Juju. I am. It's very funny that you're interacting with Nin, because I want you to understand. And on the Finest Unfiltered, this is a safe space for you. You don't have to worry about any litigation coming out of here. We understand you're a troll. You're our number one fan. You and Nin are fighting for this month for number one, though. But we don't sue our critics. We sue people that actually come after us. So I just want to let you know that. So you're safe here. Don't worry about it.
This is a safe zone.
Safe zone for you, baby.
Yeah.
I think Juju and Nin are becoming friends. It seems like Nin is.
I mean, Nin definitely wrote Juju's name on some paper recently. So it's
absolutely.
That he's.
It seems like Nin is the new Juju, though. I mean, you guys. Hey, listen. What do they say? Make my enemy my friend. You guys can be friends.
Then we definitely don't need the engagement. We got enough of it. But thanks for being here anyway.
Yeah. we don't litigate with our trolls. We're good.
Yeah.
Or fans.
John just made me forget about my train of thought here. Yeah. So here's what I was actually gonna bring up Juju again, because Juju loves to call me a conspiracy theorist. I am, Juju. I proudly wear that tag, Juju. Okay, because us conspiracy theorists have been doing pretty damn well since 2020. We've been a lot more right than we have been wrong, right? Another way to call a conspiracy theorist is just being early. Okay. Now, here's the problem with that thinking, right? If we're a group of people and we sit down together, right, and we have the same worldview and we make plans together, like me, John, and Eric sit down, we say, you know what, we need to grow the Finest Unfiltered, and we need to grow this channel and reach 100K, and then we put the work into getting to 100K. Is that a conspiracy theory? Right? Is that conspiracy? We all have the same worldview. We sit down and we plan and we execute, right? So the problem with that thinking is that you're making it seem like it's outrageous for what we're saying, for us to connect the dots and to say that these people are working for a certain agenda, that it's outrageous to think that. It's not. Okay, it's not. They have a problem. And the problem here is that they have a revenue problem. Okay, the city has a revenue problem, right? And how are they going to deal with it? And not cut the crumbs for their cronies and people who are closest to the king. Okay, how are they going to do that and still manage their revenue situation? Well, they're going to have to make some cuts that don't make sense. They don't make sense. Like you're allowing illegals. You're not pushing for ICE to deport illegals, and you're spending another 1.2 billion, which brings us to the 10 billion total for the last couple of years, including Eric Adams spending. And you're telling us that you have a revenue problem, so much so that you got to dip into the rainy day funds. Okay, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Okay, again. They have a problem, and they need to solve that problem, and they are working together in trying to at least obfuscate the problem, so the masses, you don't realize what the problem is, and you don't get your pitchfork and torch and stand in front of City Hall. Okay, because I guarantee you, if people knew the extent of the unfunded liabilities crisis in this country, okay, old people, especially old retired cops, would open their safe, grab their gun, and then walk to City Hall, okay? Because who wants to go back? You just spent the last 20, 30 years in retirement. You're gonna go and work at 80 years old, you know? That again, you need to look and see that how these things connect and realize that, you know, that the clues are all out there, okay? The clues are all out there, and they've been out there, that we have a problem, and they are working to try and mitigate that problem. Like I just said, with the civilian Department of Community Safety, okay? It's not outrageous to think that they aren't working together in some way to mitigate the issues.
You know, great point. You know, I'm glad you went back to talking about retirees, people working until 80 years old, and that's what ultimately could happen, right? So, I guess we could go back to the pensions. Let's make the comparison to Detroit so people understand. In 2013 is when Detroit claimed bankruptcy. 2013, right? So it's a little more than 10 years ago. It's 13 years ago. And when Detroit claimed bankruptcy, and I heard some people wrote here in the chat, our friends and listeners, someone said that the NYPD pension is covered because they're covered by the New York State Constitution. Now, you're right. I agree. They're covered by the New York State Constitution. But what I said earlier is they're not guaranteed by federally. And it's the same thing for Detroit. So if you have an opportunity, take a look. In Michigan, the pensions there are also protected by the Michigan Constitution. But what happened in 2013 with the bankruptcy is that the federal bankruptcy overrode the Michigan Constitution, and they started to cut the pensions. People were getting, I think it was a 4.5 or 5% reduced pension. So they didn't take their pensions, but they did reduce it. Now, that's a big hit. If you're working and you're on a fixed income and you're retired and you have your bills set and you get a reduced pension of 5%, and now property taxes in your area have went up 10%, well, where do you make up those losses? You're back out in the street working because your Social Security is not going to pick it up, and your pension, it just took a shit. So you have to make up that money somewhere. So Marlon's right. Either way, you'll work until you're 80 years old, if your pension gets hit or not. And especially look at what happened in Detroit. I think the population was about 1.8 or 2 million in 2013, and it dipped to 700,000. So if John, I have to push back. I think I know what you're saying, because if the elites stay, they raise the prices. Yes, but I think in many cases, I know they could just leave on paper. I think a lot of them will leave, and that hurts the population. And if the population does tank, that is further to the extremes of financial crisis, and that could actually what leads us to bankruptcy. When you see populations dip, like for instance Detroit, from 1.8 to 2 million to 700,000, we're talking about almost half. If that happened to New York City, we would be in bankruptcy.
It's never happened to New York City. It's never happened. The population will increase. What'll happen is the taxpayers will leave. But, you know, you got to understand, like, the whole entire world wants to come to New York City, and they want to come to New York City for one reason, because we have morons like Zohran Mamdani that is the mayor. We have morons like Kathy Hochul that is the governor. And you come here, we are going to flood your pockets with money, and we are going to give you health care. And guess what? We'll raid pensions. We'll raise your property tax. I don't see the population in New York ever going down. We know how to attract people, and we know how to attract businesses, and businesses will sit there and they'll keep, and they'll stay on that grift, and there'll be landlords that are going to get that Section 8 housing. It might not be a place you want to live. It might not be a place you want to raise your family. I mean, it's basically what it is right now. You know, like, I mean, like, so I don't see, like, that's how I look at it. I look at it like you're just going to see a lower quality of life. You're not going to see less people in New York City ever. And, you know, I could Section 8 my properties, right? I would make triple the amount of money that I make right now. I could use the money. I just refuse to do it. And not to say that everybody that's on Section 8 is a bad family. It's not that at all. But I prefer working people. They take care of their homes better. They take care of where they live better. And I'm sorry, it's just proven. And I don't want to be regulated by the government. I don't want the government to come and tell me I need an electric stove in my house, or I need to do this and I need to do that. No, I mean, my tenants live very well. Like, I don't think that I need to do that. And I don't want to raise the rent all the time. And you're always getting that increase. Why do you think, real estate's always here? It's always here. So like, and you're still going to get, like I said, whether it's on Rikers Island where you're going to have your exclusive condos, or smack in the middle of Midtown, you're still going to have the rich that are there going it's a playground for the rich, dude. I mean, look at Miami, same thing. It's a playground for the rich, and there's extreme poverty. Look at the Gilded Age. I mean, the majority of New York City was garbage. Tenements, living in tenements, but the rich was still there, and they were building these monstrosities, and they were living a totally different life. And we're just seeing that we went away from that. We started to build out the middle class, and you're just seeing the middle class shrinking. And that's how I see it. I just see, like, and you're seeing it happen in real time. He is Louis Molina. He popped his ugly head up on Twitter yesterday. He's talking about congestion pricing, and why he's talking about that is because congestion pricing, like we said, is coming to every borough in New York City. Get ready for that, and probably across the state. But he makes some good points here, because they want to install more parking meters, and they're saying that they could make another $1 billion if they add in these parking meters across New York City, right? So what Louis Molina says is, Mr. Louis Molina, he says congestion pricing increases in public transportation costs. Let's not forget parking garage taxes that have a combined tax rate of approximately 10.375%, 4% state, 6% local, and 0.375 metropolitan commuter transportation mobility tax. And if you travel and park in a garage in the borough of Manhattan, you pay an additional 8% tax, raising the combined rate of 18.375. Now this, soon, taxpayers will be charged for breathing. So I asked Mr. Louis Molina, because he's obviously concerned about the taxpayers, but he's not concerned about NYPD pensioners. So I asked him, like, how is it that he left the NYPD a decade ago, and yet he retired there with a salary as the as the commissioner of DCAS, and he still hasn't responded. So, go check out Mr. Molina on X and see if he lets you know, because he's so concerned about the taxpayers, but yet he's not concerned about raiding the NYPD pension funds. So, it's funny to watch these people pop their head up and get involved in the conversation. Like I said, you're gonna answer today, tomorrow, at some point, my friend. So it's coming. That day's coming. That day's coming.
Yeah. We already said it. What's going to happen, I think, is going to happen is the search for money, for revenue, is going to drive it might possibly drive a corruption sweep in New York City. And it may actually come from city council, because, again, they are willing to sacrifice police and cops in order to fund their boondoggle community programs, and that funding their community programs will help keep them in office even as the recession deepens, whereas if they and again, it'll make them look good if they make a sacrificial lamb out of a former cop. So something to keep about here, something to think about here. If you're one of these guys like Melinda, who are walking out of 1PP with a bloated pension right now, that's the byproduct of cronyism and corruption. So I believe that's coming. Now, I saw another comment in here about from Nate. Again, we appreciate you guys pushback on here. I think it helps us make stronger arguments. But Nate here says that Detroit lost more than half its population, not happening in the NYC. Nate has a good point there. I don't necessarily think New York is going to lose half its population, but keep in mind, in the early 80s and in the early 90s, New York City had 7 million people in it, right? New York City ballooned to close to 9 million people around 2020 and went down a little bit, okay? And since 2020, now it's recently started to go up a little bit again, but keep in mind, since 2020, we've lost 500,000 people, okay? 500,000 people. Now, the problem with that is that who have we lost here? We've lost productive people, productive tax-paying people, right? And who have we gained since? Well, we've gained illegals, and we've gained people who are going to be working menial, low-wage jobs. So even if you gain a population, you've gained a population that's going to be more heavily dependent on government services because they're low-income people. So is that really, did you really win? No, you didn't. And I'm saying this because I got to push back against what John said, because I think it's very well possible that New York City could lose people and go back to that 7 million a population that we had in the early 80s and in the early 90s again. It's very possible. And to what Nate says again, well, those two comments are related, right? We can go back to 7 million people because Detroit first lost industry, right? Around the early 60s, they were losing industry. What happened is industry was moving to the suburbs, right? The factories were moving to suburban areas. They were spreading out. And what followed after, I think it's when was the riots? Like 1969, I believe, 67 or 69, the Detroit riots. The Detroit riots accelerated the migration of people from Detroit. But like I said, Detroit was already losing people because industry left. So how does this relate to New York? Well, New York City is losing industry because Wall Street is decentralizing off of AI and remote work. And as we mentioned before, Wall Street is already moving to Dallas and South Florida. So if industry leaves first, we're going to lose people, okay? Industry goes and then the people follow after. So something to think about here.
Yeah, I agree. I got to push back on you too, John. I don't think that New York City could crumble almost half as Detroit did. But Detroit was having problems stemming back from 1965 when the Democrats started to really destroy the tax base in Detroit, and the population there crumbled about half then, and it started to come back with the industry and then crumbled again. So Detroit has suffered for that. It had a history of it. So in comparison to New York, but I do think we will see an economic decline in New York City, and I do think that we'll see a drop. And all the reports I've read so far, I do think we'll see a drop in population. I don't think it would be as much as half as Detroit. It's a far different economic wheel in New York City, and it's the economic center of the entire world. But I still think it could take a big hit. And so I understand what you're saying. As far as Detroit goes, I think that's completely different. But we can see some parallels from New York to Detroit of what's happening right now with pensions, the retirement system. And that's why, to bring up your point, Marlon, and people could be working till 80, yes. Because in Detroit, they did get reduced pensions. And the point to it is that, well, people are confident that the New York State and New York City pensions are protected because of the New York State Constitution. But that's why I brought up those similarities. In Detroit, it's the same thing. They're supposed to be protected by the Michigan Constitution, but the federal bankruptcy overrode that. And could that happen in New York City? And to me, the answer is yes, it could. By the way, I just want to give a shout out here. Cafecito Break is present in the audience. Thank you so much. They say, hello, everyone. We covered Mamdani's press conference at City Hall and intend to be present at these conferences as much as we can. Yeah, we appreciate it. Shout out for the hard work that you guys do. And we really have to keep our finger on the pulse here. And as I said before, Mamdani's not even 90 days in. So this was the plan all along. This was the plan from the beginning. So, hey, if you're a young person out there and you voted for Zohran Mamdani, and I know the Democrats don't like to back away from their position. This is who you voted for. You stand behind it. This is what you really voted for. So if you thought you were getting affordable housing, think again.
Yeah, Danny Hulk says a lot of houses for sale in Queens. I think that once spring comes, we're going to see an exodus of residents. So I hear what you guys are saying, and again, I'm gonna say, I don't give a shit about the industry. I don't care about the jobs. Until social services are cut in New York City, you're never gonna see a mass population. It's just not happening. It's not happening. It is the safest, warmest place to go. It's so cold, right? It was freezing, worst winter ever. Nobody left. Why? Because there's a ton of handouts for you there. That's why. So until those social services get cut, I just don't see it. 2020, we saw a huge exodus in New York City, right? Huge exodus of tax-paying, working people who were actually on payroll. They left. Why'd they leave? They left because they could. They left because their religious liberties, their constitutional freedoms were stripped from them. Huge exodus. You turn around a year later, 2 years later, there's more people than when they left. There's literally more people in New York City than when they left. And do we think that we won't just continue to bring in more people? Of course we would. Bill de Blasio did it. You don't remember when the homeless industrial complex popped up, when Bill de Blasio realized this is the grift and this is how I'm going to make my money and this is how I'm going to stay in office for 2 years? All of these homeless people popped up out of nowhere, and none of them were New York City residents. They weren't like homeless from New York City. They weren't like the kid you grew up with that like got bad on drugs and his mother kicked him out. Now he's homeless on the streets. No. Wasn't that. It was some dude from Ohio. And you're like, what are you doing here? Oh, they give me this and they give me that and they give me this. And you're like, oh, okay. So we imported homeless people. And then Eric Adams came in and he's like, I'm gonna do it with the whole world. And he imported people from Mexico. He imported people from Venezuela. He imported people from China. He imported people from all over the world. And what do? We gave them food. We gave them clothing. We gave them shelter. Until today, we can't diminish their benefits, but we could raise your property tax. We can't kick these people out. No. So I don't see it. I think eventually something like that could happen. I just think it's going to take a lot. If COVID didn't deplete the amount of people that were in New York City, then, it's real hard, because Eric Adams tried his best to kill New York City and he couldn't do it. So I can't compare New York to Detroit. I just can't, because it's two different cities. But we're definitely headed for bad times. I'm not saying that we're not, because you're seeing it right now. They're just doubling down on failure. There's nothing doing to change the trajectory of New York City, and that's basically what I've been saying since forever. The trajectory of New York City, like the trajectory of the New York City Police Department, is down. It's in a bad spiral. Your quality of life goes down. Your cost of living goes up. Why? Because your politicians and their appointed are a bunch of thieving morons like Louis Molina, who's going to pretend now that he gives a shit about any of you, right? John Shelley just tweeted right now. Someone just sent me. He's in Florida today looking for houses. John, give me a call, bro. I'll drive you around. I'll take you around. I'll show you where it is. I
hope he finds it. I hope he finds a Joyce's Tavern in Florida. He's gonna need one.
Oh yeah, he'll get a thing. So, but if you look at it, I mean, that's what it is. It's a huge grift. People come in here, they take all money, and then they leave with it, and then they get replaced by people that don't work. I mean, look how many people actually are on payroll in New York City. Look at it. Look how many people. It's a wild place, New York City, man. It really is. And I just think if we haven't done anything to change the trajectory of New York City, so there are hard times ahead. But there's a lot of things that are going to get raided before that takes place. Before you see population collapse, there's a lot of things that need to happen. Your pensions will get touched before you see that.
John, someone put it in the chat, which I agree. And that's why I said I don't think the New York City would fall by half. Detroit, it was a one-dimensional city when it came to industry, right? It was the car industry, where New York has every industry in it. So that's where I think there's a big difference. I knew you were going to say that, Paul. Not every industry, but it has a much more versatility than Detroit.
No, yeah. And Hunter, you're a maniac, and I usually don't acknowledge you, but don't ever tell me what I am or what I'm not. I'm fully aware it's Ash Wednesday, big guy. So shut your face.
I can say it, shut your face. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I love it, because I love how people could tell you what you are and what you believe. Yeah, okay. Test me, see how devout I am, Hunter. It's not going to work out well for you.
Hey, shout out to Housing for Life. I didn't realize it was you who said it. You know, these comments go so quick. So thank you for the contribution. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah. I just want to point out that again, the New York State has lost a seat in Congress, and that's a byproduct of losing population. But you don't have to lose. See, the problem is that we're losing the productive people, and when you lose the productive people, you're gaining people who depend more on social services, big government spending. And this is where we can gain a population, but the city could still be in a lot of financial trouble because we're losing the people that kind of really matter. You know, the middle class, the people who were working class, the people who are the productive class. Okay. And I saw this article also, which kind of said all you need to know about why the city cares so much about illegals. Okay, and it's because of the cheap labor. So to John's point, like the wealthy people, what they're doing is they're just moving their legal residence to Florida. Okay, sure, they'll keep a fancy apartment in Manhattan and they'll come back and visit. Okay, but their primary residence is going to be in Florida, and they're going to make the changes where that what revenue they do, what tax revenue they do have to pay is going to go majority to other places. Okay, but you see what happens then is that you have a New York City that's ultra wealthy and ultra poor, and that. Now, the problem here is that the city loves the illegals because the illegals will provide the cheap services that the ultra wealthy need to survive. Okay. But the problem is how do we pay for city services? Well, we're going to continue mooching off of the remaining suckers that are here. So my point here is that New York City is not going to lose like a massive amount of population. It's not going to become Detroit. And Detroit itself took like 50, 60 years to become Detroit that we knew now. So this isn't an overnight process. But if they lost 1 million productive people in the city and we go back to 7 million people like the early 90s or the 80s, we're still going to be in trouble because the remaining people, how much of that 7 million people are going to be unproductive people? You know, even if you gain, even let's say we maintain the 8.8 million people living in New York, how much of that 8.8 million people are the actual productive people? We're going to become a kakistocracy, you know? Your police department isn't going to be able to find the best candidates. Your fire department isn't going to become the best, going to be able to find the best candidates. Your city workers aren't going to be the best people. Your politicians aren't going to be the best people. You're not going to have the best businesses.
It's like it is right now, right?
Well, yeah.
You're describing New York City as it sits right now. You know, and so like that's my thing is what I'm saying is like until you cut the social services, it doesn't happen, dude. Until you start raiding the pension funds, it doesn't happen. City workers aren't going anywhere. Oh, I'm going to be a teacher in Florida? No, you're not. No, you're not. How much are you making in New York City? Oh, you're going to go to Florida and make $35,000 and be a nice teacher and care about the kids and be pleasant? No, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. Oh, I'm going to go be a cop in Florida. Very few cops are doing that. Very few cops are doing that. Why? Your pension sucks. Your money's not that good. It's like a quarter of what you're doing. And the same's true for any industry. Oh, I'm an accountant. All right, you make $250,000 in New York City. Oh, I'm going to move to Florida. Yeah, okay, $70,000. Oh, what's my cost of living in Florida? Oh, well, your taxes are down. You see a little bit more money. But, you know, houses are still $1 million.
Well, no, John, what I'm saying is the productive people will leave. The people who can or capable are going to leave. They're going to go. But the people who can't and the people who are you know, they wouldn't be able to get into those other departments. They're people who are fine with the austerity measures, who are fine with a low quality and standard of living in the city are going to stay. And that's my entire point. The best people are going to leave New York City, Okay, it's going to become a kakistocracy.
You know what I think's funny? I gotta laugh. You know, it's not hard to figure out who Nin is, and we know who you are. How come everything that Nin talks about has an undertone about race? Nin keeps talking about how the fall of Detroit, that Marlon, when you and I talk about it, that we forget about the big issue, which is about race. Now, race was a big component. Yes, in Detroit, there was a racial crisis, but the major collapse of the Detroit economic wheel was not because of race. Let's be honest. It was because of the industry. The industry fell in Detroit, and that's why, and that's what really led to the problem. And then you had racial issues that kind of like were the aftermath of that. So it was not the major component. But then you always love to have an undertone about race, so we know exactly who you are. Quite interesting. A lot of great input here on this chat today. Someone even talked about Detroit. Was it the cost of living? I think it was Stephen D, about was the pension that was reduced in Detroit, was it the cost of living? So when they reduced the pension in Detroit, cost of living was part of it. They took, I think it was 1 or 2% from the cost of living, part of the pension, and then the other 3% was the actual pension itself. So doesn't matter either way that your pension, if you're a part of a pension system and your pension system is supposed to have a cost of living increase, and that cost of living increase is cut while inflation is happening, that hurts you. That hits your pocket. And ultimately, that's what's supposed to happen with the Tier 3 pension, right? The Tier 3 pension, which nobody's ever explained that to me. And I love to dive into these pensions. We don't know what that cost of living is. At this point, it's been a complete mystery. It's supposed to be a cost of living increase. And I have asked, no one, and even the pension system can't give me that number. What is that cost of living increase supposed to be? So I don't even know if it exists.
I don't know. I never really delved into it too much, and the people that are in it don't care, so I don't care. You know what I mean?
They don't care.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And I agree with you, Maul. And the people that can leave will leave, and the people that could leave left already. And as more people could leave, they will. But most people can't leave. That's the thing. You're trapped in the consumer, like you're just trapped in it. You're trapped in the system. You're trapped. Whether you're in, I'm not even talking about like if you're a city worker and you're an indentured servant for 30 years of your life. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about most people, like the majority of working people, which is only like half of New York City residents. Only like half of New York City residents are actually on a payroll, right? Everybody else is just eating off the tit. You know, everybody else is just sucking on the tit. So you're gonna have to see a lot of bad things happen, including the rating of every pension fund. Because what all of this stuff that's happening, this stuff was happening. It's just Zohran Mamdani. It would have been Cuomo. It would have been Adams. This stuff was happening. This was coming. Like they will not stop spending. They will not. So yeah, is it possible? Everything's possible. Anything's possible. But I'm just saying, like you have to be realistic at what they're going to continue to do, and they're just going to continue to increase the cost of living for you, and the rich are going to continue to get richer, and the poor are going to continue to get poorer, and the middle class is going to continue to dwindle out and be diminished. Yeah. That's what's happening right now. That's what's happening right now. We're not at collapse yet. We're at let's get rid of the middle class, and that's what they're doing. That's what
I don't want them to go after the pensions. That's the last thing I want. But honestly, looking at this plan and the extreme financial crisis they're in, and not cutting fat and trimming off these agencies, I don't see how they don't go after pensions. I just don't see how they don't.
Well, look. Sorry, I didn't know you. No, I thought you were done. Sorry.
No. I just don't know. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, well, you know, he has a track record, Zohran Mamdani, like Eric Adams. They hire great people. So this is Tamika Mallory.
Yeah.
Tamika Mallory was his advisor for his community safety program, right? She was part of his transition team. She ultimately had to leave because, like Eric Adams, she was a big fan of Louis Farrakhan. She didn't try to get Louis Farrakhan to police the housing projects like Eric Adams did when he was a cop. So, but Tamika Mallory had to step down because of anti-Semitism allegations. Eric Adams, you know, he's fighting anti-Semitism now. So it's a weird dichotomy that's happening there. One's an anti-Semite and one's fighting against anti-Semitism. But they're both Louis Farrakhan acolytes. So This is Tamika Mallory.
I don't give a damn if they burn down Target. Because Target should be on the streets with us, calling for the justice that our people deserve. Don't talk to us about looting. Y'all are the looters. America has looted black people.
So that's Tamika Mallory. So she's there for community safety. Like that's, so he's got I could only imagine like his financial people that he has around him, because I'm sure they're equally as qualified and they have such brilliant ideas as Tamika Mallory. So I mean, I don't see anything for anybody to be worried about, really. Like I just don't. So I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't dug in too much into her, but you notice again, upwards of 80% of Mamdani's administration are all women. Yeah, and as we talked about in the past, women love a lot of big government services. They like big government and they like a lot of government services, and I don't think it's a coincidence that his administration is like this, because you're more than likely to get a bigger government, more bloated government than men who are, men are more prone to rugged individualism, and that's something that Madani doesn't want. And it's something because, it's smaller government, leaner government. So.
Yeah, here she is again. This is her community safety.
Tamika, let's get specific. In those pictures we saw, you see, far more whites and others marching with blacks than you did, 40, 50, 60 years ago. But to get specific, even liberals did not like the phrase defund police, because many interpreted that as we're going to shut down police departments. What is your message about what that means, or what a different phrase would be to explain that position?
I think it's about creating balance, and I talk about it in the book. And while you're right, a lot of people are uncomfortable with the phrase because in many ways it has been shaped by the police unions and others who do not want to oppose police as a way to abolish police departments. And certainly that is not what we're talking about in this moment. While there are many who are abolitionists, and I am one who believes that at some point we should get to a place where we don't need police officers in our communities with guns. But right now, that's not what we're talking about. If I give you an example just of the city that I live in, which is New York, our budget for police is between $6 and $10 billion. But yet, if you look at and combine the budgets of the health department, the housing department, if you look at education and you sort of total all of those budgets, they don't add up to the $10 billion that's being distributed to police officers. That means that there is a terrible imbalance where we're putting too much money and our priorities are really invested in punitive damages or in controlling people by mass incarceration. And clearly it's not working. We need to see more mental health services, more housing, and more development within communities so that people don't even need to be in contact with police. I think we put police also in danger when we have them going into communities where they are not prepared to deal with the issues like a breakdown that is happening in someone's home. I think it's unfortunate for everyone in this situation, and that actually police should be supporting this idea that we need to make sure we shift resources so that people and communities are whole.
So I could see why he picked her, because she knows absolutely nothing about New York City budget or how much the police department's funded or how much the DOE is funded, because we just showed you the DOE represents 40% of New York City's budget, and the New York City Police Department represents 7% of it. So she has absolutely no clue what she's talking about. She's talking complete theory. And again, theory is just like Zohran Mamdani's economic policy. We're just going to tax the rich and they're going to pay for everything, and money grows on trees. And don't worry, we're going to just take out all your funds too.
Yeah. So again, this is how you get to the DOE getting that 40% of the budget. And like we said, then they're more than happy to sacrifice cops, because again, you are already unpopular. Okay, you are already unpopular. But everyone, they haven't demonized teachers. Okay, and the teachers are again a heavy Democrat voting bloc. Okay, so they're more than willing to sacrifice you and like save the other pension systems. They're more than happy to pilfer you first. Okay, than the other guys. And again, this goes back to Zohan underfunding the police department while again tripling the budget of the crisis management system and all those other community and NGO programs that work with the city.
Right, that's the problem I have with Democratic socialists. Just Democrats in general is that they don't put cuts on social services. They say they pay this social service, they pay that social service, they pay all the social services, and say, oh well, now we have no money left, and we only have this much left for essentials. I mean, it should be the other way around. Let's go over the essentials, right? Your New York City Police Department, sanitation, fire, these essential agencies, and Department of Education, and figure out how much is allotted for each agency, and then we could tail back to social services. And what's one of the most important social services for Zohran Mamdani right now is his executive order to support sanctuary cities. So the taxpayer, the U.S. citizen taxpayer that resides in New York City, the burden is on them to support someone who's committed crime that's come into this country illegally. Now, I support all walks of life getting the American pursuit of happiness, but do it the right way. Come here, go through asylum, and seek for citizenship. But instead, we have illegal military age males. We have people that stem from spoils of South America and other countries who are just using resources, and they come to New York City because they have food, shelter, and housing. And that's on the burden of the taxpayer. That is on the burden of the taxpayer, and ultimately, who may suffer is the people that provide essential services. As I told you earlier, it could affect active members right now. Maybe your pension contributions could be cut. And if you're a retiree, it could affect you also. And John and I and Marlon, we have told you it could affect your medical. We did a great episode, if you go back, with Marianne Pizziola talking about healthcare and how you can be affected by it. And you're going to be affected by it right now. And if you don't think so, you need to pay attention. Your healthcare is one of the greatest benefits you have by being a city worker. If that's affected even further than it already has been, that could cost you, we're not talking about a couple of dollars, we're talking about thousands. John, tell them how much it costs you when you retire for healthcare. It can cost you that while you're actively working.
What's going to cost everybody that they're all going to know. And I was paying $20,000 a year 2 years ago over. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot more than that, in 5, 6, 7 years as your healthcare continues to diminish. And, I don't know. Everybody's saying this healthcare is great. I don't know. I keep getting bills for every time I take my kids to the doctor. Pretty big bills too. And they keep saying, oh, this isn't covered. This is what you got to pay. I'm like, oh, wow, this is interesting. This is interesting. I thought this was awesome. You just told me this was awesome. I went on those stupid law enforcement chats on Facebook filled with morons, and they were all telling me how great it is. Oh, no, it's good. Yeah, it's good, Mo. Don't listen to those guys on the Finest Unfiltered. What do they care about the job? I'm a top contributor here. What do they care? But don't worry about it. You don't need the police. We're going to get to a place in New York City where you don't need the police. This happened in the Bronx 2 days ago. And I blame the police, obviously. I don't blame the parents. I don't blame the schools. I blame the police. I don't blame the kids that are acting like a bunch of savages. This is another sign of white supremacy that's happening in New York City. And this is a product of racism in New York City and the racism from the New York City Police Department.
Crime as well, huh? Crime as well. Where's the social worker? Okay.
So there they go. There's Zohran Mamdani goes, relying on the SRG again. Right? There they were. What happens if the SRG didn't come there? So what happened is the kids after school, they decided that they were going to loot every store in outside of the Bronx Mall and just start raiding GameStop, raiding Popeye's Chicken, breaking windows. And guess what Zohran Mamdani had to do? He had to call in the strategic response group, which he wants to abolish. So everything's working out good. Your pensions are safe. You know, you just keep not caring. You just keep not caring about what's happening in New York City and the New York City Police Department and working on that top contributor badge in your favorite law enforcement page on Facebook.
Yeah, how much overtime you think they had to pay out yesterday for all of that?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands, if not in the millions.
Yeah.
Oh, they're
And
still
keep in
paying it
mind,
right now. They're still paying it right now because they have to stay there for the cool down period. They're still paying it.
keep in mind, they also had cops at the Kings Plaza Mall in Brooklyn.
That was
because there
yesterday.
Yeah,
And same thing.
I wouldn't. I would also bet that there were probably cops out at the Queens Mall as well, just to prevent any copycat incidents from happening. And again, this is all you want to cut SRG. Now, what's going to happen is if you think you're cutting the budget on the SRG, you're going to be paying cops, patrol cops. You're going to be paying even more money in overtime costs. Okay, because somebody's going to be there. Otherwise, you know, those businesses won't be there in the long term. Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned Marianne Pizzatola.
Could you all say her name right? It's Pizzatola. Marianne Pizzatola.
Oh, sorry. Well, we're not from Sicily.
You guys are
like,
I'm still trying to get Frankie Palagacci's name down properly. Okay. One name at a time, John.
Yeah, I was saying, well, let them know. This is a lot of the tongue here.
Yeah, but Mariana has me blocked on Twitter because I told her I got into a back and forth with her a couple months ago, telling her how all of her problems, the problems with the retirees, are the same problems as, you know, those of us who got pushed out. It's all related to the budget and how they are trying to obfuscate their fiscal problems. And she basically told me, I'm like, you know, I'm out of my mind and I'm wrong and I'm too obsessed with COVID and basically I should have just got the shot, you know. And here we are months later, and what is Mamdani doing? He's pilfering your retiree health benefit trust, okay? And every conversation I think she has a radio show now, but every conversation she's going to be having on that radio show is in some form or another related to the fiscal situation of the city, including I saw her talking about the fact that the city now wants to basically sell your health data to get I think it's $100 million.
Holy shit!
That's great.
You really want to do
budget.
that?
Yeah. I haven't dug into the
out
details.
The window. We just need to make money now.
Yeah. They're gonna.
Somebody's gonna pay for these illegals.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna pay for Nin's bullshit fucking lawsuits.
Hey, you know what, John? That's racist.
Yeah, they're gonna be looking for ways to you know, plug those gaps. And again, you know, a couple months ago, we're crazy for talking about the fiscal situation, but now you're gonna be talking about the fiscal situation too. And like we said, those people who thought that getting pushed out was our problem need to realize that it's part of the bigger problem. It's all one big problem. And that one big problem is the malfeasance, the fiscal mismanagement, the cronyism, all of the people that feed off of this stuff at the top. And while the system is kind of, you know, collapsing in on itself. And to that, I just want to put this up quickly, John.
Sure.
NASA heads up, thanks to Lily, one of the our most loyal viewers, you know. Shout out to Lily, and thanks for sending this to me. You know, Nassau County recently they approved I think it was 10 years ago, right? But it's now getting into effect. An early early retirement incentive program, right? So basically, they're anticipating. I think the number was either 200 officers who are going to retire early based off of this. And the reason why they're doing this is to save labor costs. So, like we said, the scamdemic mandate was because of cutting labor costs. Okay, it was a fiscal measure disguised as a medical mandate. Okay, and this is why her fight with retiree healthcare is our fight. It's the same fight, and people have just missed it all along. Those same people who disregarded us years ago will now be talking about the long-term solvency of the pension system and their healthcare. Okay, when we were telling you years ago that you should be paying attention to this because it's your fight too. Now it's going to be your fight, and we're here right now.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to mention also, this is a little bit off topic, but I just, I feel sorry for the cops that are out there because I saw that incident in the Bronx and it was just complete mayhem. But how many CCRBs are going to emanate from that? And under Zohran Mamdani, how many cops are going to get substantiated complaints and ultimately civil litigation and civil liability because of the cops being out there doing a great job and shutting down this just complete mayhem, just people acting like total savages. This is just, the NYPD. That's why I said you can't cut essential services for boots on the ground that are on the front line. This is important. We should attack those administrative bureaucracies, and we're not going there. But where are the social workers? Where are the social workers? We're showing you right now that's why I said I don't think there's ever a plan to actually go to this Department of Community Safety with social workers and remove SRG. It's all a mask to move to artificial intelligence. That's my opinion. And that's how they're going to all make money on private contracts and save with their cuts by getting rid of the human element, moving to artificial intelligence. So, again, for the cops that are out there, I know it's a separate note. Sorry. If you had to be out there, great job. But beware, CCRB will be coming for you.
Yeah, so, we are saving in one area, though, because I don't believe building maintenance is doing that build out on Chief Levon Holly's office any longer. So I don't think homicide or any of those detectives are getting back, but I think he's going to have to make do, so he can have his master executive suite with his admin staff. So we are saving a little bit of money there. So that's a good sign. Other thing that's been happening, I've been getting message after message from retirees about they cannot get their pistol permits, their carry permits. Like they can't get it renewed. That's why I continue to tell everybody, like, make sure you keep your HR 218 up to date, because I'm not relying on an email from the NYPD like, oh, you're good, you emailed us, we just didn't get you yet. I don't trust that in New York City. I don't trust that in New York State. I don't trust judges. I don't trust juries. Like, no, I want some form of protection for myself. The New York City Police Department, the licensing division, has failed to be able to do their most basic job. Like they're not getting civilians license carries, but they can't even renew retirees. It's a joke. You're waiting months and they're telling you, oh, don't worry, you're good. Just keep the email that you emailed us. It's ridiculous. The time they're taking to send you that email, they could have took to renew your ID and get it out to you. So it's absolutely ridiculous. So good friend, Darwish, he was actually responding yesterday, and so I retweeted for him. He just, because he messages me like every few weeks. He's like, dude, I'm still waiting. It's been months. It's been 6 months. It's been 7 months. Like, what is going on here? His permit, I'm still waiting on my permit since 9/23/25, right? So he put this out. We retweeted it for him yesterday, and guess what happens? I said, this is pure incompetence. Who's in charge of the licensing division? I think it's the attorney, Hugh Bogle. And I tagged Tish in it. And then guess what? He gets an email. You're good. Don't worry about it. Say like literally like an hour later, you're good. Don't worry about it. As soon as we get the application, you'll get the thing. 9/23/25. Dude still doesn't have ridiculous, dude. This should not be hard for retirees to get their license renewed, and yet it's always everything's a problem in New York because you have the most incompetent people running vital tasks. And so that's what it is.
Yep, I'm gonna have to mention Kakistocracy for a third time, guys. So there you go. There you go.
Yeah, but you're saying we're headed there. I'm saying, what are you talking about? We've been there. We've been there for 10 years.
That's a good point. I mean, if you look back, you could arguably say we've already been there.
He described Kakistocracy. He was talking about modern day New York City. He was talking about New York City for the last decade. I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly.
Well, what do you think? It's already, the avalanche is already here.
Yeah, but I think it's gonna get worse. You know, remember I told y'all about the ticket. I got this notice from the MTA about a ticket that I owe, right? Problem is I paid that ticket 2 months ago, and they sent me a notice that says I owe $00 on it. So think of it. Somebody had to print that out. They saw it said $00, and they still folded it up, put it in an envelope, and sent it out to me.
There's no way we could save them all, and we just need to throw more. We know to throw more million at that process.
Here's an important question: did you pay it?
Yeah, I paid it 2 months ago.
No,
you mean the one now?
I was joking. Did you pay it when it said $00?
Yeah, I want to see. I'm curious to see if I'm gonna get another one of those notices, right? Because when I also got a lease, I got a new vehicle. I leased it a couple months back, right? About a month later, I still didn't receive the registration, but the dealership said they had done all the stuff. But the city itself sent me a notice about my license plate. They said, you removed the insurance off this vehicle, but you didn't return a plate, And I went to the dealership pissed off. I'm like, you guys do what you're supposed to do. Is my car actually registered in the DMV? Right? And they said they did all that they were supposed to. They were right, because about 2 weeks later, I got the registration from them. But my thing is, this is what you're seeing, and it's going to get worse, because as the more competence leaves, you're getting idiots there. You're getting a system that's like a slow burn failure, right? And you're gonna get these screw ups in the system. And when I got that notice, I kept worrying that I'm going to be driving around and then I'm going to get pulled over and my car getting towed. By the way, I actually went to the 116 and I asked them if they could just run the plate for me and just tell me if my car is registered or not. Okay. And they just told me, we can't do that. Just go to DMV. Now, maybe it's me. I haven't been on the job for 4 years, but if I don't think it would have been a big deal to run it back then, as long as you put a note in your memo book why you did it, okay? Why you ran the plate. Well, the resident came in and he told me that there's an issue going on with his plate right now. And do I want that resident to get pulled over by whichever unit and then, has his car towed or possibly even worse? So maybe they'll think it's maybe it's some rookie who's going to think he has a felony car stop, But they told me just go to DMV, So again,
whoever cop that was, he's it starts with a letter P, ends with a Y. That's what that was,
bro. It was the cop at the front told me that, and he went to the. I explained the situation. I told him I'm a former MOS, and I gave him my tax number and everything. And he went to the cop sitting at the computer, and they told me no, we can't run it.
That's stupid. You could have just put your plate and see Finest. What an idiot!
I mean, just come outside and look at the car. And then go back in, and I'm not, I understand guys are worried about getting in trouble, but you see me, you take my information, you put it in your memo book, you take a picture of the car if you want to. Everything's on the phone now.
But this is why I talk about a 3-tier system. I mean, at one police plaza, there, you can run pretty much any operation over there, but you got a cop who's terrified to run your plate with you telling him you're an MOS right there. Yeah, that's the NYPD. That guy was general population. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah, this job doesn't care about the minute you leave and retire. I'm telling you, this job just doesn't give a shit about you. The minute you're off the job, and you're seeing it right here.
They don't care about you while you're on the job.
Well, true.
The only difference you're in the know. You're part of the drama. They don't care about you unless you die, right, John?
No, you have to get killed in the line of duty.
That's true.
You have to, and it has to be like it has to be politically friendly too. And then maybe we'll name the police academy after you. And then we'll make sure that your son never has to work again.
You get your own hallway.
Yeah. We'll get your son to chief without him ever having to do a stitch of police work. But only for some. There's other line of duty families that you guys have to actually work for a living. Sorry, whether you come on the police department or not. So, but absolute joke. So yeah, the Post nailed this one. I think this was a good stick 'em up. Mayor Mamdani threatens Holco raise taxes or else. And so that's really what it is. You guys got anything else before we head out of here? 2 hours, 20 minutes into it.
Coffee and donuts, baby. Let's do it.
All right, Marlon, anything?
One quick thing. I thought just out of shits and giggles, I would run the cities, their reserves, their rainy day funds, okay, and see which of those cities also has recent executive orders by their mayor blocking ICE from, attempting to restrict ICE's enforcement in their city. I just thought it was very fascinating, like the which cities come up and what their reserves are. I haven't formed a full opinion on this yet, but I just thought out of curiosity if there was any sort of correlation between having, low reserves or having fiscal problems and wanting to restrict ICE from enforcing immigration in your city. So this is what came up, but I'm still working on it. But I do believe that if your city is in financial trouble and you need cheap labor, cheap undocumented labor, that more than likely your mayor is signing an executive order right now trying to freeze out ICE.
It's a good point. I never even thought about that. I never even thought about the cheap labor end of it.
Nice job, brother.
Yeah, it's a great point. So,
Well,
all right.
congratulations again. I promote you again to first grade.
I was hoping to get the assistant commissioner of social media cloud chasing position.
You could.
We just don't have enough money in the budget for the embroidery that
Hey, you know what, Marlon? We could get you several pensions. We could get you an NYPD pension. We could get you a pension from the mayor's office. How many pensions you want? We can get it.
Unbelievable. All right, Crazy 10-7. He says Marlon said CAC twice. Cacistocracy, baby. That's what we're living under.
Actually, you gotta hit us up with coffee and donuts one more time, Crazy 10-7. He said it 3 times now. So, but thank you, we appreciate it.
Sleepy Joe's. He said put parking meters in the residential areas too. F New York City. That's what they're doing, dude. I mean, it's gonna be. They're just gonna tax the crap out of you. That's what it is. You're gonna this congestion pricing's going everywhere. I say they pilot it in Staten Island and Southern Brooklyn first. Just thoughts, because of racism. Not against black people, but but then could still live in his fantasy world.
John, another racial undertone.
Yeah. Mile and a half run, super racist. I think got to get rid of that immediately.
Let's do a mile and a quarter. Half's too much.
Sleepy Joe's. The real question is, why do Democrats fervently defend and fight for illegals much more than any other group? I think Marlon pointed it out here is that the cheap labor, and then the other thing is the dole. They're easy to push them on the dole, and they're easily to be manipulated, and they're more likely to vote Democrat. I mean, it's been throughout the entirety of New York City history. Winning the immigrant vote means winning elections, and ultimately, like you saw, I still can't believe that Eric Adams was able to reinvent himself, but you saw him attempt to get illegals to vote in New York City elections for 3.5 years, and everyone's like, why is he welcoming all these illegals? And because he wants a second term. And then he told you, remember when he said he was gonna register 1 million new voters, and people believe him. I'm like, he's not going to register 1,000 new voters. What are you talking about? Nah. He said it. I'm like, oh yeah. So he said everything else that he said wasn't true, but you're gonna believe. We'll believe him about that. We'll believe him about that.
I think Marlon's absolutely right. It comes to cheap labor, but if there was a pecking order, I would say the number one reason was votes, and number 2 would be the cheap labor.
Yeah, I agree. It's both. It's both.
Yeah.
Because remember, if the competent people are leaving, we need people to replace them. Otherwise, you're gonna lose more seats in Congress, and that means you're gonna lose more federal funds. You're gonna lose more voting power. So it's kind of both, you know. And again, the illegals are desperate people, you know. Again, I always say it's not really their fault, okay? Because if we facilitate, if we're giving our free shit, a desperate illegal is gonna want to come here, you know. If you're in a poor third world,
who wouldn't?
Yeah,
Who wouldn't?
everyone would. You're in a poor, starving country in the world, and you want to get a better future for your family. You're gonna come here and then take the free services and try to make something out of yourself. You know, plenty of these illegals, by the way, have come here and gotten those free services and made something out of themselves. You know, I mean, they're all. I'm not condoning illegal immigration. You know, I'm just saying that there are plenty who've used it as a springboard to make something out of themselves. You know, but it's just that these places need desperate people who are going to replace the productive people who are leaving. So it's both.
Yeah, and that was like my main thing when they were protesting in Staten Island and they were like shining lights and like women that were here illegally with their kids in their face because they were in the shelter there. I'm like, you're protesting in the exact wrong spot. You should be in City Hall. Like if you were these people, you would do the same thing. If I was them, I'd do the same thing. Oh, you're gonna give me all this stuff? Yeah, I'm gonna leave the hellhole that I live in. Yeah, I'm coming too. Like you got to understand. Like these people aren't your enemy. Your enemy's in City Hall. You're taking pictures with him at Christmas parties. Your son's cucking out for him at the New York City Police. We're honoring him at all these events, giving him Man of the Year awards. Like you people don't know what you're talking about. And then you're begging for him to be the mayor again. Anyone but the commie. Anybody. Like people are ridiculous. You don't pay attention to what the hell's going on. Hardcore X, looking forward to seeing our unions fight as hard against this as they did with the vaccine mandate. Vinny, Scott, etc. Just constant emails about new products to buy. Look, they're absolutely useless. I mean, they've proved it. They could care less. I mean, I think they're in Florida more than I am. All of them. I honestly do. I think they're in Florida.
Not just Vinny, Scott. There's other ones too.
Every single one of them. Every single one of them. I leave none of them out. I think that they're horrendous. And I'm telling you, it's coming. Man of the Year, Leadership Awards. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. You know, Hispanic society's back to throwing regular parties. Like it's a joke, dude. All these bullshit awards. I'm like, come on, man. You know, same shit with Blue Lives Matter. It's another Fox News contributor. It's like, dude, what does this have to do with the police? Seriously, what is that? What have you done? What have you done to fucking benefit working rank and file cops? Nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. You know, it's a joke. Stephen Dess. I agree. They will sell us out. They will take retired healthcare first, but just taking PD pensions versus leaving teachers, New York City employees retirement fine pension, and New York City Board of Ed retirement. Sorry, no. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we go first. Does that mean that the other unions get away with it in the long run? No, but right away they're going after the police department. I mean, they're doing it. They've been doing it for decades now. I mean, I don't know who doesn't like. I don't know where all this faith comes from. It's like, no, they gave me all this overtime 2 years ago. It's like, because they're idiots, bro, and it's unsustainable. You think they didn't give you the overtime because they care about you or your family or your kids? You think they care about you? No, they injected you with shit that was bad for you, and they knew, and then you didn't need.
Well, economically, they actually didn't do them any favors. I mean, they think if you're in your 18th year or 19th, if you're in your 18th year and you got 100,000 in overtime and you can't get that the following year, guess what? You got to retire, because the following year you get your actual base salary, maybe a little bit of overtime. Your pension's gonna be far different. You're not getting that pension, but the variable supplement, John, the variable supplement. Oh, I can't leave that on the table. Oh, no. Okay. I'm going to give up an extra $2,000 a month of my pension because they're going to give me that variable supplement. Do your math, please.
Yeah.
I hate when these guys, like, they talk about the variable supplement like it's this gold mine. It's great. But if you can make $200,000 a year and not get your variable supplement versus getting $75,000 a year in your variable supplement, can you do it, man, please?
Yeah. Don't even get into a conversation with them about taking some of that overage and investing it on your own.
Oh yeah, forget about it. Oh no.
Yeah.
516 Diecast. The team is back together for midweek dive into truth, common sense, thinking, and justice for the heroes whose voice is unheard in the theater of the absurd. Thank you. Keep your chins up, P.O. Fronty. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you for always being here.
Diecast, well written. Thank you for the coffee and donuts. That is awesome. Really. I like that.
And then Crazy 107 says cack attack again for the last time.
Yeah, she went for the third. Thank you, Crazy 107. Shout out.
Yeah. All right, peoples. All right. I think that's it. You know, it was midweek, Mamdani's budget. So here's your option. Either the cost of living goes up for you or the cost of living goes up for you. Which one are you going to pick? We're in dire times. You got option A, option B. Don't ask us at all to look at our budget. Don't ask us at all to be a competent governor. Don't ask us all to rein in our spending or unnecessary spending. You got option A or option B, and both of those options lead to the fact that Zohran Mamdani, it was never giving you affordability, which he ran on, and we all told you that, and everybody was telling you, "Oh no, affordability is at the top of my ticket." Bullshit, because none of them could explain how they were going to give it to you, and here's how you're going to get it: cost of living goes up, quality of life goes down.
Hey, John. Nate says he's moving to Ponte Vedra.
Bring it, brother. Bring it.
Yeah,
bring it.
Let's see. Yeah, Hunter, the problem's taken care of. It was a DMV issue because the dealership did, they sent in the information, and I was wrong. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was 2 days later. They sent me my registration, but the issue itself was with DMV. That they shouldn't have sent me that letter to begin with because they had my info. And that's the point. The point is that, they're not holding up their end. You're getting inefficiency in the entire system because it's people that are inept who are running it. And it's the inept people are the only people that are going to be left soon in the city because all the competency has fled to better places. But I guess I won't because I thought, I wasn't able to go to the DMV the day after, but I was hoping that they could tell me then and there if I have a problem, because if I had a problem, I would just park up the vehicle immediately. I would have rather even parking it by the precinct rather than getting stopped and by some rookie who thinks it's a car stop, and next thing you know, maybe I got a gun in my face or something. I have nothing but what I tell them. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing. I don't have a retired ID, so so.
Oh, you're right. You know that's a shame. You got no due process. You don't even have an ID. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, listen. About 2 hours and 33 minutes into it with the Finest Unfiltered on Wednesday. Thank you to our friends and listeners. Awesome engagement. Chat's really blowing up, and even to you, Nin and Juju. Definitely a battle. Who's going to be the fan of the month? We appreciate it, or maybe the fan of the year. So thank you to you both. I know you're probably busy. You got to get to a meeting in a couple of minutes, 11:05. So with that being said, like, share, and subscribe. And as John always says, hit that hype button. And you have to hit the like button first. And don't forget, tonight, Executive Perspective. They're doing a hell of a job every week. Great show. And that show is at 17:05 or 5:05 p.m., depending what time clock that you like to watch. So with that being said, thank you so much. Finest Unfiltered. We appreciate it. John, close us out, brother.
Yeah, that's it, people. So, Hunter, thank you for reminding us to remind everybody, all you Catholics, go get your ashes, right? Start of Lent's coming. So, what are you guys giving up? I'm giving up eating junk. No sweet treats, no ice cream, no cookies, none of that stuff. That's my downfall. And from ashes to what you came, so shall you return, my friends. And your pension doesn't go with you, motherfuckers. So
does it? That's right.
So you better wake up, So
that pension does not go. Well, your variable. I know the variable is this a magic. The variable doesn't go either. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So All right, people. So, yeah, we'll be back at you Friday. Check out Executive Perspective tonight. If you guys didn't check out the 10-4 Tavern yesterday, check that out. They had Chief Mike Marino on. It's going, people. So what a lot of news we didn't get to today. Too much to cover about his budget, but it's going to keep rocking and rolling. So appreciate everybody for being here, and we'll be back at you. Finest Unfiltered.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?